So I'll be able to access comments and all straight from the computer here beside me. So, hello, welcome to Irish Football Fan TV. This is the retro rewatch, and we are watching Republic of Ireland versus Romania from Italia '90. That famous game that Gary likes to tell isn't very entertaining, but it has a nice ending to it. Gary, what are your, memories of the time of this game? Because obviously you were at this game. Or you were at that whole tournament. I'm pretty sure you were at every game at that tournament. So what was it like for yourself?
So I was at this game. I was there for the whole month. It was I suppose my memory is it was my first time in Genoa, and it was a lovely hot day, as nearly all the days were during Italia '90. Or that's certainly my memory of it anyway. And the stadium was right in the middle of the city. It was a fantastic location. Genoa is a beautiful city anyway, but the stadium is stuck in the middle of the city, which is great location. Loads of bars, restaurants, everything around it. And it was Irish everywhere. I mean, I think there must have been something like 25, 30,000 Irish fans in the stadium that day. And there were very few. I mean, Romania had just come out of communism, so there wouldn't have been too many Romanians would have travelled in those days. They probably just had a few hundred fans. And lovely stadium, great atmosphere, fantastic build-up to it, and just a great day.
And Will, what are your memories? How old were you at this again? 9, I think you said, or 7?
I would have been, 7.
I think you were saying it last week. Yeah, you were.
Long time ago. But
what were your memories from it?
I'm trying to think. Obviously, by that stage, we were past the group stage, so now it was kind of just all a bit bonkers, really, because I don't think anybody thought we were going to get out of the group. Then we got out of the group, and the party just continued. Like we said before, with the last game with the Dutch, the country just stopped. Everybody was at home. Love to see the viewing figures for what RT got for that game. To the point of, I wonder, was that game, the Italian game, some of the most watched TV ever in the country, either even still up to now or, at that time. But yeah, I would have watched it at home. Family would have been all around, and just basically praying, really, that we got some sort of result. Nerves are incredible. And I suppose as a 7-year-old, you didn't kind of really realise what it was about to a point, but it was just kind of the start of the great adventure, really, in football.
Yeah, obviously it's about to kick off now. Again, a lot of the younger fans probably weren't born. If it makes them feel any better, I wasn't born, but I think I was just about to be. So I mean, look at the scenes. Look at the scenes here, like the fans, the flags. It's unbelievable. Gary, what part of the stadium were you in there?
So I'm pretty sure on the camera side and down on the right-hand side. So I was down near the goal, side on the goal on the right, which was
the goal that they're going to be shooting in now.
Yeah. So it was the wrong side for the penalties, as it turned out. Yeah.
And what were your I suppose thoughts going into this game? Because obviously we watched the Holland game. We got that draw. It was the Egypt game as well. They didn't show that, but what were the thoughts going on around the time?
Well, I suppose the big thoughts were delighted with the result against Holland, and then winning the ballot to actually end up playing Romania rather than playing West Germany or Germany, whatever it was at the time. That was huge, because I don't think we'd have been given much of a hope against the Germans, who went on to win it. So it was very much seen as a 50-50 game, I think. But also we were probably a little bit in bonus territory. I think had we gone home after the first round, it would have been a bit of a disappointment, particularly given the Egypt game. But we'd managed to get out of a very difficult group now. And yeah, we were in the last 16 of the World Cup playing against Romania. And Another thing, actually, that you can see the massive Irish crowd. There's so many fans actually managed to get out for this game from home because Northern Italy was much more accessible than the islands we had been playing at in the group stages. So I think a lot of guys, especially back 30 years ago, there were no cheap flights, but they found a way to get to Genoa. It's not far from the French border. There was Irish coming from all over Europe. So there were a lot of people managed to make it out for this game. You can see it. There were no ticket issues, actually. It wasn't sold out. So everybody that wanted to go, that made it to Genoa, was able to get a ticket. And yeah, it was just a fantastic occasion. First time in a World Cup and then the first time in the knockout stages.
Gary, just on that, there was just over 31,000, I think, was the attendance. What would you say was that Irish versus Romanian fans?
Okay, I actually thought it was a bit higher than that. I mean, it must have been 95, 97% Irish. I mean, it was Irish everywhere. There seemed to be only a few hundred Romanians, you know.
And that was probably the first time ever at a major tournament where essentially the whole stadium was Irish.
Oh yeah, it would have been, yes, because let's say for Euro 88, okay, we had quite a lot. We had bulk of the fans in Hanover, obviously against the Soviets, but there was a lot of Germans, a lot of neutrals. The group stages, there were actually quite a few Egyptians and plenty of Dutch and English, obviously there. I actually had seen Romania play Cameroon in the group stages in Bari. And we ended up getting we're buying tickets outside. Apart from our games, we were just trying to get tickets from the touts or from other fans outside. Got 2 tickets outside from Romanian fans, which was very easy to get. And we ended up behind the goal with the Romanian fans. There were only a couple of hundred of them in Bari, and I don't think there were too many more in Genoa.
I'm just watching Paul McGrath here. He's just getting stuck into everything. Like, no one's getting a second on the ball. He's just crunching into
You say that, Paul, but they had a really good chance there. And that could have the entire game.
They did,
yeah.
The big danger man for them at the time was Georgi Hagi, who was an absolutely fantastic player. I think he's probably been a bit forgotten about compared to some of the others from the time, but he was class in midfield, very good on the ball, had a dangerous shot as well.
He's the only one I ever heard of, Gary, from the Romanian classic kind of players.
Well, there was 2 in that side that really kind of stood out when you look at kind of the sphere of football. Was maybe 2.5. Him and Gigi Popescu. The 2 of them were kind of the big star players. A lot of these players in the Romanian side would get moves after the World Cup. I think Popescu went to PSV. Hagi went to, I want to say, Real Madrid first. And then I think he went to Italy and then back to Barca, kind of where he really stood out. But the other guy was Florin Raducioiu, who was a little bit of a journeyman, but played for AC Milan for a while. Ended up at West Ham in the Premier League for a little bit too. But Hagi was something else. Hagi's one of the best players ever to have played in Europe. He's probably just below that level of Maradona and Pele, because I know Pele had great things to say about him. He was an absolute wizard. His left foot was just incredible. And I always remember, Gary, if you remember this as well, around the kind of early 90s, they used to have him and Hristo Stoichkov from Bulgaria. The 2 of them, I think, both left footers, if I'm right. Both at Barca for a while, I think, as well, possibly at the same time. But incredibly creative, gifted players. Right mavericks as well. Hagi was a little bit of a hothead at times too, could temper. But great characters.
There's Big Mick, not happy. Trying to play it out from the back there, Gary. What's going on?
I know, Mick the manager mightn't be too happy with that.
Just look at the players. Like, I was watching. I got a DVD today in the post came from Amazon. It was the Howard's Way documentary. Going on about Howard Kendall's time at Everton, and I was just looking at Kevin Sheedy. And
Everton documentary.
Sorry?
An Everton documentary.
Yeah, film a documentary. Yeah, Howard's Way.
Is it good?
Yeah, it's probably the best thing I've ever watched. But that's me with my Everton glasses on. But Sheedy, around the 80s, and I think they were showing he scored a free kick from the edge of the box, and the ref said, "Oh no, you can't. You didn't blow the whistle. You have to take it again." And he went to the keeper's near post at the time, and then he made him retake it. And Peter Reid wouldn't get out of the way, and he told him, he said, basically, get the fuck out of the way. That's what he said on the actual video itself. And then he just looped it over the wall into the top corner, and yeah, he was just such a seriously good player. Whether it was crossing balls in or scoring free kicks, he was just amazing. And again, another one I think because, if we look around, I'd probably say him and Duff probably be our two all-time players to play on that left-hand side. And I think a lot of people obviously remember Duff now because I think obviously more younger people would be on social media more so than the older ones. But if you mention Kevin Sheedy to any Everton fan, they say he's probably the best left foot to ever of graced Goodison Park. And then I'm sure a lot of older people would have said that Sheedy was one of the best ever Irish players to play for Ireland, especially on that left hand side. But I do also have a bit of bias. Like, he was good friends with my dad as well. He's actually at my dad's funeral and stuff like that. But I had the pleasure of interviewing him there last year. But I just look at him and I was kind of unlucky in a sense that I never really got to see him play because I was born in 1990, in August, so I didn't really get to see like him. I did get to see some of them, Staunton, McGrath and stuff like that. I got to see McGrath a little bit, but not nowhere near the kind of prime he's in there,
Mm.
Was that a feeling back then, Gary? That we looking around the team that we did have players like, as I mentioned there, Sheedy was winning leagues and stuff. With Everton, Lawrenson's in there. Looking around, who else is there? You've got Quinn was a very good player, obviously then as well, coming through. I think he was at Arsenal at this point in his career, is he?
Yeah, I think he'd still have been at Arsenal then. Yeah, I mean we had players at top clubs. I mean, even if you go back to Euro '88, we had 2 or 3 players at Celtic who won the double. Liverpool won the league, should have won the double that year. We had the likes of Houghton, Aldridge, etc. Whelan.
Liam Brady, Serie.
Yeah, well, unfortunately, Brady got injured and then suspended and then injured. But we had players at bigger clubs, I suppose, than we do now. And even if you look there, most of our players were at big clubs, and it's probably a way the Premier League has gone now that there's so many players coming in from so many different countries that it's really hard to get Irish players at the very top level.
Do you think that might be a thing now? I know that's that stuff with Brexit, and Will, you probably know a bit better having lived in London and stuff like that. But I mean, from actually players going across to England, are there options kind of more open now with going to, say, Spain or Italy or Germany, for example? There was like lots of talk about, oh, nice bit of skill there. I think that's Hadji on the ball now. But there was talk of Troy Parrott going to Germany. We've seen a couple of English youngsters going to Germany. So is that an actual possibility, do you think, Will?
I think basically the thing is it's trendy. It's very trendy on the continent now for clubs to be looking outside of their neck of the woods for foreign players. I know, especially probably in the let me think. Probably as far back as the 97, 98, there were kind of foreign kids starting to creep in, this from memory, into kind of Premier League youth squads. English clubs were definitely trying to do that, kind of scouring Europe and seeing what kids they could bring in. I think a lot of it began when I kind of always, as a Chelsea fan, looks at that kind of watershed of Ruud Gullit taking over from Glenn Hoddle. And after Ruud, then there was Gianluca Vialli. And a lot of their backroom staff had very good contacts in Europe. And a lot of kids basically started to come across from Italy, from Germany, from Holland. A lot of them didn't make it. But that's kind of when it started for kids coming into England. And now it's almost the opposite is happening. You see a lot of English kids because they know it's very, very hard in the English game to kind of get a start because there is that trend to buy. And the reason there's a trend to buy is because essentially English clubs charge too much for English players. Because you do have the rule where you have to have a certain amount of homegrown players in your squad. So that tags on an extra value to a player's, transfer fee. And as I said, you look abroad, Jadon Sancho was kind of one of the first to kind of set the trend. But there's been a few players over the years who've gone abroad. Remember, there's a Chelsea kid called Michael Mancian who played a few games at Stamford Bridge and then was kind of loaned out and ended up playing, I think, for...
I want to say,
I think it was Hamburg. Yeah.
One of them, yeah, he went to one of them. I think did he go on loan at Wolves? I think when they were
he was on loan at Wolves, yeah. So there have been a few, and we've seen a few Irish lads as well do the same. But I think in the past 3 years or so, especially with Sancho, we've seen a lot of interest in youth kids. We've seen, like last year, Bayern Munich sniffing around Callum Hudson-Odoi and giving him an option to kind of barter with the Chelsea contract negotiations. So there's that sort of thing as well. And I think just European clubs are always very dependent on their own youth systems. Some of them have great youth system setups. Look at Bayern Munich's wonderful setup there. The Italians, the same. A lot of players coming through. The Dutch, obviously, Ajax.
Barcelona, obviously.
The academies there.
Example, yeah.
Yeah, so... they just seem to be able to churn out these kids. But I think as well, they realise if they go abroad, they can kind of make sure they get given a chance in the first team. Because, again, I saw Chelsea for years, players ready to be given a chance. And the managers just knowing, well, there's no point in me giving these kids a chance because they're not really going to do me any good. It might take them 18 months for them to, say, cement a place in the first team, and sure, then I'll be gone. So what's the point? There was no kind of long-term focus, and a lot of them ended up just being, wandering around European leagues or the lower leagues, the Championship, League One, League Two, when they really should have been given a chance. There were some very good youth players there, and now I think as well, for the good thing for English clubs, you can even look at Everton, Paul, is that when a foreign club does come on the horizon, then it kind of almost forces the club to go, right, if we want to keep him, we're going to actually have to start involving him in first team action. You've seen a few kids come through at Everton over the past few years, like Tom Davies, Dominic Calvert.
He went abroad, didn't he? And John Kenny on loan.
And I think for Irish players, it's a good thing as well. It's great for us when we look at the national team. If we have lads... We have, name escapes me, the young lad who's at, is he in Portugal?
Ryan Johansson?
No, he was at Bayern, wasn't he? No, there's another lad, or he has a Spanish name. Can't think of his name, but, the more we have players playing around international leagues has to be a good thing for the Irish team because it just gives us more... you learn so much at the clubs. Like if you're in the Barcelona academy, you can imagine what you're learning there in comparison to an English club. You're learning different things at an English club. I'm not saying it's worse, but to play somewhere like Barcelona or whatever, it's definitely giving us an extra string to our bow, I think.
Well, I think you're right in saying that because I think if you're going to say a foreign league, and I think Jerry Armstrong had on the podcast there last week, and he was he was going on about how the culture is completely different in the way they play football. It's all about your touch. It's all about your control. It's so much more technical. And for some of our players who might not like to be, say, physical, maybe for example, maybe someone like Jack Byrne who thrived in Holland and maybe found it a bit physical in England or lower league England and Scotland. And again, it goes down to, when he signed for Wigan, was it Wigan or Blackburn? From Man City, I think it was Wigan. Owen Coyle signed him, and then within 3 weeks or something, he was gone. And it can all come down as well to, I suppose, timing and luck. And you talk to any player, and they'll tell you, the same thing. It can all be down to timing, luck, and obviously hard work, because they all worked hard to where they got to. Like, that's call a spade there. But when you look at it kind of from that aspect, I would definitely encourage more players to go abroad, just for that life experience as well. I think a few of them would really benefit from it. I think for someone like Troy Parrott, it could be a really good thing. I don't think he would leave Spurs, but even there was talk of him coming to Dundalk. I would probably like to see him go somewhere, but unless they were going to play him in the European games, but I would like to see him kind of go somewhere maybe abroad where they play a nice kind of brand of football. Not that Dundalk don't, but you know what I mean. It's kind of
Different level. It's a different level.
Yeah, because a lot of our players are, in the Irish league, they, how do I put it without sounding disrespectful? Like, there's some teams there that are part-time, so I'd like to see him play against full-time players every week. Does that make sense?
Yeah. You're not being disrespectful. The League of Ireland players would fully acknowledge that League of Ireland is not at the same level as some of the other European leagues. The pace of it, the technical skill of it, it's not as good, and that's just how it is. It's coming on, and we're hoping that it's going to grow, and we can have, a league hopefully in a few years' time, which could be,
competitive,
closer to getting to that Champions League group stage, because I think that's what we got to almost judge the league on. But yeah, I think Troy's at a very important stage of his career, because we all know what Jose Mourinho's reputation is for when it comes to youth team players, and unfortunately, I don't think Troy is one of his favourites. And obviously, we don't know what's going to happen with football coming back and everything else like that. So it's going to be an interesting time for Troy. I think his next move needs to be the right move, and hopefully he has some good people around him who can advise him, whether it's a loan move or whether it's a European move. Like you said, I think a European move would actually possibly be quite good for Troy. He's not the biggest player in the world, and obviously when you drop down to Championship, it's a bit more hardy, and for a kid, never mind what stature you are or build you are, it obviously can be a little bit daunting. So
Troy
knows?
has actually got quite a stature. I mean, he is a very strong player. He may not be that tall, but he's certainly well able to look after himself. Now, one thing I'd like to see, Will, I know Chelsea do a great thing with Vitesse Arnhem. I don't know if Tottenham do something. I'd like to see Troy in something like the Dutch league, which would give him a chance to develop his skills and maybe score a few goals as well.
Oh, completely. Like that, to me, it's a clever thing for Chelsea to do, I think, and it benefited Vitesse Arnhem very well. As in, it would be great if we could get to a position, I think, in the League of Ireland as well. And, that's not dissing the League of Ireland, but, to help, especially like, for instance, if we were at that level and Dundalk had an arrangement with Spurs that we could, Dundalk could take a player or two off them for the season and help that player develop and grow while he's at home. What a better environment. We've seen how Jack's adapted, and how him being home has helped his mental side of his game off the field and on the field. So that would be a great thing for Irish kids in the future. I think as well, the other difference between Irish kids and English kids, why there was, maybe more Irish kids would be suitable, is that I suppose if you want to make it as an Irish player, you've always had to dream about going abroad. I don't think there was too many kids who were dreaming about playing League of Ireland, and that's not to be disrespectful, but it's, when we were all kids wanting to be footballers, it was always about playing for Man United or Liverpool or Arsenal or Everton or Chelsea or Newcastle or Leeds, whoever it was. But it'd be a great thing. That might be the next sort of level for. There we just see John Aldridge's famous tackle and George Hadji.
How left his calling card there. Yeah.
Was that on FAI TV that he came back and he mentioned that? Or was it, it was on the Boys and Green.
Yeah.
That was funny.
That's a leg breaker. Good old
Jack would have been proud of that one.
Oh, completely. But again, like I'm sure, any team you play on, when you've got some sort of player like Hadji, you'll be told, get in early on, be physical on him, let him know you're there. Good. Like, if you sit down, we obviously were watching the game, but if you to watch it just so closely and to watch how Hadji plays, the team just went all around him. Completely was the conductor on that side. Everything went through him. Just give Hadji the ball and he's our magician. The Irish lads, in fairness, managed to basically stub him out.
Yeah, but that again goes back to that thing we said about the skillful player and the physicalness or the physicality, of the team. All those players there were kind of were brought up playing either in Ireland or with a British-based kind of style, especially with a British-based manager.
Now you do actually, if you go back to some of the young players, there's a guy in, I think it's a Real Betis, and a great name, Anselmo Garcia McNulty.
I've seen him,
yeah.
Okay. And then you have a guy, Connor Ness or something?
Noss.
A German, Noss, whatever.
He's at Mönchengladbach, isn't he?
He's at Mönchengladbach, I know, and he's, I believe, well, he's certainly eligible for us if he hasn't declared for us anyway. Yeah.
I think his mom's Irish, yeah. I think that's right.
Yeah.
There's another lad playing for Malaga. He only under 15, so you don't know how kind of serious a prospect he is just yet. But he's a striker. Yeah. He scored against England that game, the under 15s. The lads I was out with, Caden, I can't remember his second name, but
I've heard about him before. Yeah.
He did a video with FAI TV as well. But he looks like a good player too. But again, he's at under 15 levels. So you can't really say too much about him just yet.
There's Hadji on the ball again now. That's Chris Morris chasing after him. Yeah.
I have to say that Romanian kit was something else as well.
Yeah, why don't they have a crest on
it? It looks like quite an old kit.
I think something happened because I remember the fans, the Romanian flag had a crest in the middle of it. And it was the time of communism, Ceausescu, etc. Most of the fans in Italy had actually ripped the crest out of the flag. So they were waving flags with a hole in them. So I don't know if it's related to why there isn't a crest in the jersey. I don't know now, but I'm possibly guessing that there were probably some issues at the time. The country was certainly in turmoil and changing a lot.
It's just like, do you appreciate that you've probably seen our best ever teams? Who's to say Stephen Kenny can't bring something like that back? But I kind of feel deprived the last few years. When I look at the players like this and how people talk about them and how young I wasn't born for this, but like the 2002 World Cup for me was the best Irish team I've seen, while supporting them. But to see the players that are playing here, like, how do I put it without making it sound old? But did you realise you were watching history there? Obviously, it was the first World Cup we were in and stuff like that. But we had such a good team, and again, you look back then, we had strength and depth as well. Whereas I suppose with our latest squad, we don't really have strength and depth. When you look kind of to our bench, you kind of think, okay, so there's players there that can come on and might make a difference. But I suppose when you're looking at the bench there, you're bringing on people that will make a difference. Do you know what I mean?
No, I mean, we had, I think we did. I certainly did realise we were going through history, because I mean, Euro '88 was our first major finals. This was our first World Cup. We got to the knockout stages. You know, it was fantastic days, and I think the feeling was, look, let's just enjoy them. It's great to be here, and we may not see those days again. And it actually came as probably quite a big a surprise. I remember the late Jimmy McGee saying in 1985, and we'd been hammered 4-1 at home by Denmark. And Jimmy said, I cannot see an Irish team making a major finals in my lifetime. And I mean, luckily for Jimmy, he was alive for quite a few, and got to work at quite a few. And I mean, actually, after he said that, we qualified for the next 2 and 3 out of the next 4. And at the time, when he said it, I was, 18, 19. I actually agreed with him. I didn't think, it just seemed so far away. We had come close in 82, but then just, I suppose that Danish defeat, it was the end of the own hand reign, and it really felt like a low point for Irish football. And it's amazing how quickly it turned around.
Yeah, it's funny though, because back then, you know, under our own hand reign, we would have had like Liam Brady in there, who is arguably Ireland's greatest ever player. I mean, it depends what area you kind of watched football that you're going to judge on that. But anyone who goes abroad, plays for Juventus, then the best team in Italy, I don't know what they were like in Europe, but scores the winning penalty to win the league. And, you know, I heard so many stories about when he still goes over there now, that the people absolutely idolise him and, you know, still sing for him and everything like that. I think, again, we kind of undervalue our players, like our best ever players. I feel as though at times Roy, well, maybe not so Roy, not so much Roy, sorry, more so probably Robbie. I don't think he really got the level of respect until he retired, I don't think, in terms of how good a player he was for us. And I think you look at someone like Liam Brady, who I can only go off what I heard about him, but you probably would have seen him a fair few times, Gary. What was he like to actually witness and watch him play? And would you have seen him in his prime?
Oh yeah, I mean, I did. I mean, my first game was Switzerland 1975, and I actually can't remember whether Liam played that day or was standing out, but certainly I remember a game a couple of years later against France, and we beat France, who were, well, nearly always a decent side, but we beat them 1-0 in a World Cup qualifier, and Liam Brady scored the goal, but he also had a brilliant game. And I mean, we saw him quite a bit, the late 70s, the early 80s. He got the winner against Brazil as well. I mean, for over a decade, he was the mainstay, and certainly he's in the argument for our greatest ever player. He had an absolute wand of a left foot, and just so talented, so good on the ball. And another player that I actually saw play beside him, now I didn't really see this man at his best, was John Giles. He was player manager when I started going, and I suppose he was definitely the end of his days. I mean, I even saw him he was playing for Shamrock Rovers as well in the League of Ireland later on in the 70s. And but again, I mean, it's more the stories I've heard of John Giles in the 60s, but how good a player he was initially at Manchester United, and then on that incredible Leeds team of the late 60s, early 70s. I mean, he was one of the main players on that. And another man who has to be in the argument for our greatest ever player, without doubt.
Well, I think that's 100%, because, you know, we were all involved in the all-time 11, and everybody had an opinion, and we were the biggest idiots in the world because we didn't pick whoever. You know, so it's one of those things, isn't it? Everyone has an opinion on it, like, and that's the beauty of football as well. But but this, it just kind of goes into what I'm saying. Like, I spoke about Sheedy earlier. I think he was underappreciated a bit as well. And then you look around, like Paul McGrath, I think does get the level of respect that he deserves. I think he's probably one of very few who no one really ever says anything bad about, ever. And then kind of looking around, people are kind of torn between Given and Bonner. From watching these games back, I think Given was a far more confident keeper. You had more like what I mean by confident. I'm more confident watching him. When I look at Pat Bonner and some of the saves he made here, like he palms them straight back out to people, whereas I think Given would actually catch them, and that's why I think actually I would always have Shea over him, and I always grew up watching Shea, and I thought Shea Given for Ireland, and Will knows what I feel about Shea Given as a keeper. I think he agrees with me. The only real kind of thing that stopped him from really pushing that elite level was joining an elite club in his prime. I know he did with City, but they weren't elite at the time. I don't care what anyone says.
Yeah. I mean, I actually like, I mean, I think both of them have to be in the argument. The one thing I like about Paki Bonner was he very much commanded his area, I think much more than Shea. I mean, Shea probably, as you say, was a better shot stopper. He held on to the ball more. The one thing that ruined Paki was the back pass rule. I mean, you can see quite a lot of passes back to the keeper there. And when that got outlawed, I think was it 92, that was nearly the end of Paki because he just wasn't comfortable.
Yeah, but there was so many people guarding fairness to Paki at that time who just didn't cope with that because they'd spent their entire career training everything never with their feet, and it was just like asking them to play a new game then. And especially when you're at that age as well, it's very hard to, be kind of harsh on them. But sorry, that's just
it's very difficult. I mean, it is, as you say, it's very difficult. I mean, if you look at the goalkeepers now, the likes of Allison and Neuer, etc., and they have to be so good with their feet, and they're almost like an extra outfield player. I mean, when I was growing up, and even when I was in my 20s and 30s, goalkeepers, they were there to stop the ball. They were never any good with their feet. They didn't have to be.
Defenders, really, weren't they? As well, like they were just held low Z. Good luck.
I think just going back to the Liam Brady point as well, is that we remember that he played for Juve, but he also went on to play for Sampdoria,
Inter as well, yeah.
Inter, Ascoli.
Yeah.
So it wasn't as if he got around Serie A, and apart from Robbie Keane at Inter for that short period he was there, I think there might be one other player who played in a Serie A.
Gary Breen.
No, was there? I don't even know.
Ryan Nolan.
There was somebody who was there in Serie A for a while as a kid. I think I'm not sure he played, but.
Ryan Nolan, he's gone to Serie C team now. He's at Inter. He was only a young fella.
No, this could be a good few years ago now. I can't remember who it was, but.
Well, Ronnie O'Brien famously at Juventus, but I don't know if he got. He was
an
internet sensation for a while. Yeah.
Well, we're talking about that, and especially at the time, Serie A in the 80s and the 90s, that was where it was to be. So that was the creme de la creme played in Serie A. So no Irish players done it since.
It's funny because you mentioned them earlier, Gary, about the reason why he wasn't in this tournament. And I was at a Q&A with him. There was a Q&A and the local football club Bradford Rovers had one up in the Tree Rock, and Liam was the guest up there. Himself and Owen Hand, actually. I was sitting eating dinner with Owen Hand. He's a very nice man.
He's a lovely man.
But Liam Brady was on stage and he was talking about the suspension and how he was going to appeal it. And he won the appeal, but he missed out obviously because of injury, didn't he?
Well, no, that was Euro 88. So he originally got I think it was a 4-match ban for Euro 88, and he got it down to 2 matches. But then he got a bad injury, so he would have been able to play in the Dutch match. And wow, could we have done with him at 0-0 in the second half to hold up the ball, get on the ball? But anyway, that's history. So he was actually he was a huge loss for Euro 88 because he definitely one of his best games was actually in the qualifier against Bulgaria when we beat Bulgaria 2-0, but Liam got sent off at the end, and that's where the suspension came from. The problem was by Italia 90, he had definitely slowed down a lot, and very controversially, Jack took him off in the first half of a friendly against West Germany in September '89, and it was a really sad sight because would have been about 5. I think Jack was trying to send a message because about 5 or 10 minutes before half time, he substituted Liam and he was really trudging off the pitch, and I was there, and it was really sad to watch. And I think everyone knew that day that Liam wasn't going to be going to the World Cup. Now, he did have a testimonial against Finland, so he did get one World Cup just before the World Cup, but the feeling was there was quite a bit of controversy, and some of the journalists were stoking it up, saying maybe he should be in the squad. Maybe we should have found a way for him to play for 10 or 15 minutes at the end. But I think the way we played and Jack's style at the time, Liam's legs, probably Italia 90 just came a couple of years too late for him.
Yeah, well, I don't know, as I say, I wasn't born, but I'll tell you the story anyway because it's quite funny. Oh, look at that. That's like one of them things. Did you ever watch that beach soccer that used to be on Sky years ago?
Yeah,
And they used to flick it up and then volley it to take the free kicks that way. That was
I bet
Sheedy
Jack
again.
wasn't happy with that. That's too fancy for a Jack team.
Well, so the obviously the Euro '88 thing, Liam Brady, he went with an FAI representative. I can't remember his name, but he went with him anyway to I think it's Switzerland, where the UEFA headquarters is, or wherever they were doing it. But anyway, they went into the room, or it was a big room for the thing, and whoever it was, they were sitting there and they were like, we're not going to win this appeal. And Liam was like, you have to win me, you have to get me the appeal, you know, we have to get it, I have to go to this tournament. Because did you say it was a 4-match ban, so you would have missed all 4 games if that was the case, wouldn't it?
Yeah, I think it was 4 matches he got originally. Yeah.
Yeah. So whoever it was, someone went up and started speaking a load of gibberish, and they couldn't understand him. So Liam was like, get him off there. He's just being an embarrassment. And then whoever went up next, he got up on stage and he was like, Liam Brady is to what Michel Platini is to French football. And Liam Brady is what Maradona is to Brazilian football. So at that stage, he knew he was screwed, and he was just like, "Oh my God, what am I have to get myself into?" I think he got a 2-match ban in the end, but he told that story, and the whole room just erupted with laughter. Like, it's so funny.
Can you remember what it was? Sorry, I don't know if we've said this. What it was actually for again?
Oh yeah, he was sent off. It was violent conduct. At the end of the Bulgaria match, I think I don't want to wrong Liam, but I think it was. I think it might have been a headbutt or something like that. It wasn't. Yeah,
A bit of a moment, yeah.
Yeah, it was pretty physical. It was he had taken a bit of a kicking from the Bulgarians as well, so I think he just snapped and lost it at the end. But yeah.
Yeah, but
it's quite interesting as well, listening to this, lads. When we're actually listening to George Hamilton's commentary, it sounds like he's doing it over a walkie-talkie.
I have it muted.
Oh, it's hilarious. Like the sound quality is so poor, and I can't remember whether that was actually specific because that was just how it was done at the time, or whether it was just a bad line they had that day or something. But yeah, it just, even that is quite, evokes a few memories of just, you know, back in the day when things weren't HD, shall we say.
I think you appreciate things a lot more, and I think someone like you know, I actually dread the day someone like George Hamilton stops commentating for Ireland games. I'm not a huge fan of Jim Beglin, his voice. Sorry, Jim, if you're watching, but
Jim's great. I think Jim is really good on co-coms.
Yeah, I like Jim.
I don't know. I just don't like his voice. He probably doesn't like my voice if you ever heard me talking. So look, it is what it is. But George, I can listen to all day.
Jim's never coming on Irish Football Fan TV, is he? There's a player who had his Irish career cut short as well.
And another guy with a fantastic left foot. Oh, he was some player. He was actually a massive loss. That I know you're an Everton fan, Paul, but that tackle by Gary Stevens was just shocking. And Oh, how we could have done with Jim in Euro 88 or Italia 90. I mean, he would have
He
been in
was.
his prime then.
There you go. So Jim would have been what? With Staunton probably, left back?
Yeah, I mean, I think Staunton would have been playing in midfield. I think Jim would have been our left back, I think, in both Euro 88 and Italia 90.
Mm.
He was really that good. I mean, he was playing with Liverpool, who were the top team at the time, and he was
European champions.
Top player. Yeah.
No, they had a big, strong contingent in Liverpool, obviously with Ireland back then. Lawrence and Aldridge, Beglin. There was, I'm sure,
Ronnie Whelan.
I knew there was one big one I was forgetting.
Mark Lawrenson was another loss actually for Euro, and he was just got too late for Italia 90, but he was injured for Euro 88 as well. He would have been he was a crucial player in qualifying, again an absolutely class player in a green shirt.
And a great Barnett. He's a
great
mullet, didn't he? Yeah, deadly mullet.
Yeah. Different styles back then.
No, it was cool because I had him on Pro Evo, and they have him kitted out to a T, and his mullet looks deadly, That's the only reason I play him. Him and McGrath, centre halves, with Moran and O'Leary as backup, so it's a good team. But that again, when I go back to playing those types of games, and you look at the stats of the players, without editing them or anything like that, some of the players had unbelievable ratings. Sheedy's rating was quite good, but then you had players like Steve Highway, who, Gary, you always tell me was never really hitting the heights he was for Ireland as he was for Liverpool at the time. But there's him, and McGrath's rating is really, really high. He's like an 87. Robbie Keane's is quite good. Roy Keane's is unbelievable. But Brady, Giles, Ronnie Whelan, all these players had unbelievable ratings, and I think, I go back to the point that we had some really good players. Staunton was, I think, an 87 as well. So many good players, and I think people always go on and talk about the style of play, and we've kind of been held back a little bit. But is that something that you thought back then, Gary, or what did you think? Were you just happy to go with what the manager thought, and did you trust in his methods?
Yeah, I think there's a couple. Oh, good save there by Long. Sheedy nearly scored. It was a controversial one back then. I mean, because we had some great players in the early 80s as well. The team that nearly qualified for 82 were actually playing really good football on their own hand. It was controversial, I think, but the one thing Jack had put into the team was a level of organisation and self-belief. So everybody knew what their job was. And I think we became much more difficult to beat. We were very good at home, but a bit of a soft touch away from home. I mean, if I think back to the 70s and 80s, we got one fantastic 2-2 draw in Rotterdam in 1981. That was my actually first away game. But nearly all the other big games in the 70s and 80s were all defeats. If you're thinking about playing, went to Paris a couple of times, beaten in Brussels, beaten, the Dutch beat us a year later, beaten in Spain in Zaragoza, beaten in Bulgaria, a terrible defeat, couple of bad defeats in Bulgaria. So there's a lot of the bigger games, and when Jack came in, he did bring a lot more organisation. We were a lot tougher. He started off first competitive away game was a 2-2 draw with Belgium, who were a top team back then. Well, they still are now, but they were, I mean, a serious outfit. They went through a
phase, yeah. They weren't always great, yeah.
Yeah, but they were. I mean, they'd been to the semi-finals, I think, in the World Cup in Mexico, and we played them in September and drew 2-2, and that was the start of a great start to the Euro 88 campaign. And we were then we got a great win in Hampden Park, and that win actually in 1987 was I think considered our first win over kind of decent opposition in a competitive game in 20 years. We'd beaten Czechoslovakia in 1967 in Prague. That was a bit out of the blue as well. So yeah, Jack had brought a level of organisation, knew what he wanted all the players to do. And in some ways, he did have some modern things, like playing Paul McGrath as a sweeper in front of the back four. That wasn't really a done thing at the time. I mean, a lot of clubs and countries had a sweeper behind the back four, but Paul was playing more as what we could know now as a holding midfielder, or if you want to say the N'Golo Kante or Claude Makelele role at Chelsea. And I mean, a lot of clubs have them now, but it was quite revolutionary back then. So some of the things, yes, the long ball was a bit frustrating, given that we had the types of players like Brady, Whelan, etc. But in general, we were really happy to be there.
Mm.
So
just on that point you were mentioning, because I know you would have went to away games before. What was your first away game?
That was 81 in Rotterdam. It was a 2-2 draw with the Dutch. Yeah.
So, say after Euro '88, did you notice a lot more fans on the road with our
music?
So I always remember, Paul, we're talking about memories and stuff. I think after 1990, obviously we had the Euros, disappointed with the Euros, and then we had that great qualifying campaign for '94, and there was a video released of in the build-up, the road to the USA. And it was a great actual piece. I remember as a kid watching it several times about the fans on the road and Davy Keogh and all these people going to the likes of Albania and stuff. And I'm wondering, was there, because the Irish team kind of got elevated a bit, all of a sudden there's more of an away group on the road, which maybe helped the team, in places like Albania?
You actually, not places like Albania back in the 70s and 80s, but you did have big numbers travelling. I mean, there must have been about 5,000 in Rotterdam that night. And I know going back to the 70s, because I know people who were travelling then. Mm-hmm. And there were, let's say, a couple of thousand people would go to places like Paris, Brussels, Paris twice, actually, 76 and 80, even actually Paris 73. There were quite a few fans went then. So the places that were nearby, that were easier to get to, I mean, often overland. I mean, I have friends that went to Switzerland in 1975 for the European Championship qualifier, and they went by Slattery's bus. I mean, there was a bus left Dublin to go. I think the game was in Bern. We went overland to Rotterdam. I mean, it was so expensive to fly in those days. Now, obviously, Euro 88 had a mass exodus. There was about, I think, 12 or 13,000 fans over for it. But it kind of took the general Irish public a little bit by surprise. So it was a huge thing for the football fans. It was great we qualified. But there wasn't, before we left for Germany, there wasn't a huge amount of hype. There was a bit, but it was the first finals. But it was very much a trip, I suppose. The people that were in Germany were mainly the football fans, the people who were involved in clubs or involved following the League of Ireland or whatever. By the time we beat England and suddenly the country went mad, and I was only hearing about this out in Germany, after that, everybody wanted a piece of the team. So basically, after about the Euro 88, for about 6 years, the Irish football and the national team were absolutely huge. Everybody followed it. Everybody wanted to go to games. So, yeah, I mean, it became impossible to get home tickets. There was a big demand for traveling away. And then if you go into the 90s, after Italia 90, we only had about 300 in Albania. It was actually very difficult to get to Tirana in 93. I was there, but there wasn't that many there. But if you take even games like Latvia and Lithuania, which weren't easy to get to either in 93, we must have had 2,000 or 3,000 of those, which would have been unheard of a few years earlier. And they'd never seen crowds like that. I think we were by far, they were reasonably new independent, or they got their independence back. They had been independent nations in the 20s. And it was, they were just stunned by the amount of Irish people that arrived for those games. I mean, Spain and Denmark would have been playing in our group, and they would have only brought a handful of fans to Vilnius or Riga. So and we brought, I think, about 9,000 to Seville actually in the qualifiers for USA '94. I remember just a massive bank of Irish supporters because the Spanish were happy to sell us the tickets, and it was just Irish everywhere.
What stadium was that in again?
That was in the Sevilla Stadium in '92. I think it's the Sanchez Pizjuan, I think it's called, but it was the Sevilla one anyway.
Okay.
It's been renovated a bit since, but it's still there,
Gary, I think it's fair to say you've got around.
Yeah, I've been to a lot of games, So.
Time to write that book.
Oh, it's.
You've been approached by a lot of people. Like I seen with Gavin Cooney doing a piece there recently. Did he not get in contact with you about it? Can't remember what game it was, but people are always getting in contact with you regarding that type of stuff. And what's his name? Liam. He used to work with my dad in the Examiner. Liam.
Well, Liam Mackey is.
Yeah. He was on to you about something as well, wasn't he? Out at I think it was one of the press conferences or something. He was asking you for something. Was it a game? I can't remember, but. So they'd be always asking, like, Gary's like royalty when he walks into that media room. Everyone just be stopping him. I don't know where they're at for a picture or what.
No,
but,
no, it's just, I mean, I'm going a long time, so I get to know a lot. I mean, you get to know so many people when you're going abroad a lot. I mean, you end up chatting to people in bars, walking down the street, even wherever. That's.
Yeah.
Right, so Gary,
will
just
just be known though as well. Like it known in a good way. No one gives you grief or anything like that. So it's nice in that sense that people are always, and anytime you send us a picture of, you at one of these types of tournaments or something like that, and we put it up, like, people love them. But people are always saying like things about you, Gary, online and all. So that every time you're in a video, that they're always asking, where are you? Obviously now with the coronavirus, it's hard for you to obviously do videos, but like people are always asking for you and just think that your stories are brilliant. Like, so it's really good. Like,
I was going to say, we're just in the second half, Gary. What was the feeling at halftime in the stadium?
good question.
So yeah, it was very tense, very nervous. I mean, it had been a tight first half. There weren't that many chances. I suppose even at that stage we were thinking, will it go all the way to penalties? Or certainly was the feeling was one goal would probably win this. And we were obviously hoping to nick it, But it's... but then in some ways we were still, as I said earlier, we were probably in bonus territory because we had got out of the group. I mean, there's actually a World Cup. I mentioned this, I'll do my count. Ourselves and Scotland actually share a World Cup record. One the Scots won't like to be reminded of, though. It's basically the most appearances in a World Cup and always getting out of the group, and the most appearance, which is us with 3. That we've been in 3 World Cups, we've always got out of the group. No other nation can actually match that. And most appearances in a World Cup, I think, which is Scotland's, is 8, and never getting out of the group. I mean, Scotland have never played in the second round of any major tournament, and they've been qualifying since the 1954 World Cup.
It's been a while since they've qualified, though, hasn't it? I know. Did they not have a playoff now as well? Coming up.
1998. The 98 World Cup
John
was
Collins
the last
scored
tournament.
a penalty against Brazil, wasn't it? Yeah, that was my first World Cup. That's how I remember that.
In fact, a friend of mine was he was actually at Scotland, Morocco in that World Cup, and he was getting a train. I think it was in Saint Etienne. I think Pat was reminding me. Anyway, he was on a train out of the town after the game. Scotland had looked set to qualify. They were I think they needed a draw against Morocco, and they were hammered 3-0 and just humiliated.
I remember that completely. Yes, yeah. Mustafa Hadji, wasn't it? The other Hadji.
I can't remember who scored. Yeah,
he went to play for Coventry, didn't he?
He did. Yeah, him and there's another player who got a move.
Anyway, Pat's on the train, and this guy,
Youssef Chipo.
Okay, that's right. I remember him actually. Yeah. So he's on the train. This Scottish guy there saying, "This is my 6th World Cup, and I've never seen a second round game."
That's poor.
You got to feel for them.
You have to feel for them because they actually came close to getting out of the group here this time. I mean, they beat Sweden, but they lost to Costa Rica.
What are you doing?
I mean, actually, that was the day we played England in Calgary. The Costa Rica Scotland result. It was 1-0 to Costa Rica. that had been playing earlier in the day, and we'd no way of watching it, and it flashed up on the screen. And I think we were just in shock that Scotland had lost to Costa Rica, and the English fans, of course, were gone mad and delighted and celebrating and laughing at Scotland. But they actually came back very well. They beat Sweden, made Brazil battle, but unfortunately they didn't get out as one of the best runners up or one of the best thirds.
See that?
Yeah, I remember that.
Can you see that comment there I put up from Jared
Can
Fitzgerald?
do, yeah.
What are your thoughts on that, lads? Because we didn't
you
really
read it
mention
out?
Ray. We didn't really mention
Ray Houghton was our best player for years, always on the ball, trying to make things happen, according to Jared Fitzgerald.
Ray was a great player. I wouldn't say he was one of our best players. I mean, he scored 2 of our most crucial goals and will always be remembered for those. And he was a very important player in Jack's team. But I wouldn't have had him up there in the level of importance of someone like Paul McGrath, etc. But certainly one of the very good players. I'd love to have Ray in his prime in a green shirt now.
Aye.
But
Lots of energy.
I think that is a thing though as well. But you spoke earlier, Gary, about Jack Charlton and the time under our own hands and the fact that we would lose all the big games. But you look at since probably Jack Charlton, I don't know whether maybe that's the mentality he has he brought through then, because even you look at, and people will say we don't really have a strong team at the minute, but we haven't for a while, but we've still gone places and got results. Like even Euro 2016 for qualification there, going to Bosnia, beating Germany at home. We still always have a magic night in us. When we know we have to perform, we still can type of thing. You know what I mean? I think maybe that kind of stems down to that from back then.
We've been tough enough to beat away from home. We haven't been the soft touch that we were probably in the 70s and 80s. I mean, I even remember one incredible stat under Trapattoni. His first away competitive defeat, now leaving out major finals, his first away competitive defeat was against Austria in his last game. So, I mean, he was 5 years in we didn't lose any away competitive games, and that's including the likes of Italy, France. So it's we have been a lot better. Even Martin O'Neill, we got a couple of fantastic away wins. That great win in Cardiff with James McLean goal, the win in Austria, another James McLean goal, the win in Austria. I mean, they were absolutely superb results.
Smash and grab.
Wales was a bit smash and grab. I thought we played really well in Vienna actually, but it's so we are much more difficult to beat. What we've probably lost a bit is we were in the 70s, 80s, we were pretty much invincible at home. We used to win against the big teams on a regular basis.
Gary, wasn't there an amazing record under Jack at home?
Oh, yeah. I mean, Jack, the only defeat, I think the Spain defeat in 93 was probably, that was his only home defeat, competitive defeat then until the Euro 96 qualifiers when things fell apart a bit against the Austrians. They may have been our only, off the top of my head now, I think they would have been our only 2 defeats, and we had a lot of good wins. I mean, in qualifying for Italia 90, we won the 4 home games in the group. I mean, and that was crucial. We beat Spain, and then we beat Hungary, who were probably the big rivals. And we beat Northern Ireland as well. I mean, you might say too much about Hungary then, but Hungary had been to, I think, the 78, 82 and 86 World Cups. Northern Ireland had been to the 82 and 86 World Cups.
Oof.
We hadn't been to any. And Spain, obviously, were always qualifying. So we would have been starting off. Okay, we'd been to Euro 88. We probably would have been more or less 4th favourites. And it was quite an achievement, and it was the crucial home wins that got us over the line there, because the only away win we had in that campaign was actually in Malta on the last day.
That was a good bit of play there by Quinn, wasn't it?
That's a typical Niall Quinn cross, wasn't it? When he used to get on the ball like that, instead of Cascarino, who was unlucky not to just keep his header down.
I think Niall Quinn is just was such an intelligent footballer. Like a big man, but he always kind of knew where to. If he wasn't getting on the end of it, he always kind of knew where to place balls and stuff like that. I think
I mean,
that
the
was everything.
footballing brain. Definitely a footballing brain.
Yeah, absolutely.
And even still, kind of evident with the ball knock on for Robbie Keane back then. You know, even at the end of his kind of days, and he was still, you know, winning. There
There's
he
a
is,
lovely
chesting the
chest
ball
on there. Yeah, yeah.
He was winning
What?
penalties against Hierro in the World Cup 2002 as well. Like
Yeah.
just a very intelligent person. Knew how to rough up defenders without being, or he knew how to do it kind of subtly rather
He was just
than.
clever. Very, very clever. I tell you, all you have to ask is Kevin Phillips at Sunderland. Ask him about what a foil Niall Quinn was for him, the partnership they had, and the goals that were scored, you know.
Unbelievable. The two of them just gelled, and they scored so many goals between them.
Well, Phillips, didn't he win the Golden Boot that year in the Prem?
Yeah, possibly. Yeah.
No, he did. He got like 30 goals or something. Ooh. Now, that was a silly corner to give away. Was that not a corner? Should have been a corner.
If you just look around all the stadium, all you can see is tricolours everywhere, green shirts as well.
Quality.
They flashed on the fans a few times, and it's just Irish fans. I haven't even seen the Romanian fans in this yet, I think, you know.
Yeah, there's another snapshot of the crowd there a little bit. That was over the line though.
We got away with that one.
But like at this time, Gary, would you have been nervous with this game going to pens, or do you thinking there's still extra time and stuff like that?
Yeah, it was probably still a feeling that one goal would still do it, and one goal either way. I mean, we definitely didn't want to go behind at this stage. Particularly, it was very hot. It would have been tough to chase the game in that heat, and Romania would have been so good at keeping the ball as well. But yeah, we felt if we could get the goal, yeah, we definitely we could dig in and win it. But I suppose penalties was always in the back of your mind and thinking, yeah, it could go all the way to penalties.
I remember actually back from that thinking we actually didn't mind it going to penalties because Packy was a bit of a superstar. And we thought, Packy will save the penalties. Obviously, that was a 7-year-old kid, but
he actually was. Packy was not a great goalkeeper for saving penalties. He was a great goalkeeper, and I know the Scottish Cup final, I think, had gone to penalties that year. I think Aberdeen beat Celtic something like 9-8. And I don't remember Packy saving too many penalties. He obviously saved a very important one. Maybe we don't want to jump ahead in this too much, but I mean, I suppose they were considered very much a bit of a lottery at that stage. I know Jack had said the team had been practicing penalties. They had done that, and I was certainly aware of that. Maybe from a phone call home or something. Now, I'm not actually, but I certainly was aware that, because you couldn't get the Irish papers out there. So you were kind of hoping some people coming out would have. I don't actually remember. Maybe this is what we saw. Somebody had come out for the game, and I think we were having a cup of coffee because it was an early enough kickoff. It was coffee, not beer at that stage. Actually, I don't think there was alcohol in Genoa that day. But anyway, I was having a cup of coffee, and someone had an Irish paper, and we kind of borrowed their paper and devoured it for half an hour or whatever. And that may have been where Jack had said they were practicing penalties, because obviously no internet, no mobile phones in those days, and you were ringing home for information or talking to other fans, or if someone had come out and for a day trip and brought a paper with them, they were kind of mad to borrow the paper, you know.
But the other thing that I'm pretty sure, Gary, John Aldridge was the main penalty taker, wasn't he?
He was, yeah.
And so he was gone off at this stage.
He'd gone off injured. He was replaced by Cascarino, yeah.
Who you wouldn't have put down as a
I mean,
shall we say?
I mean, Kevin Sheedy would also have been considered a pretty reliable penalty taker, but yeah, you wouldn't have. Tony Cascarino. They certainly wouldn't have a David O'Leary in that mix either. But I don't know. But
That was like Houghton's goal
Against Italy.
Yeah, wasn't it? The way it bended like that.
Except, well, Houghton kind of mishit that, did he?
Yeah, but
I get what you mean. Situation, yeah.
The trajectory of the ball. You haven't mentioned much your idol growing up there, Andy Townsend, Will.
Well, actually, do you know who I was going to mention there? I wonder, is this a good World Cup fact? Who's the only player in the world to have ever played Gaelic games at county level to have played at a World Cup final?
Moran, is it?
Kevin Moran, yeah.
I only know that because I heard it at a quiz or something, a table quiz, I think, comes up a good bit. Is it himself? Yeah. And didn't Javi Alonso win some sort of underage medal for GAA as well? Played
I think he played hurling or something, but I don't think he would have.
He was a student in Ireland for a while, though, wasn't he?
Yeah.
I think Martin O'Neill was actually a decent GAA player in his time as well. I don't know if he played at senior county level, but he was. And Niall Quinn at minor level, I think, played.
He did
Croke Park or something, yeah.
Jerry Armstrong was supposed to be unbelievable for Antrim as well.
Yeah.
You know, he didn't even get into football till he was like, he got suspended from GAA and then was forced to play football because he just wanted to keep active. He went to play football, and then not long after he was getting picked up by Spurs and was overdoing what he did then for the rest of his career. It was unbelievable. Some of the stories, like some people are just so good at sports. It's mad, like. Just imagine being that good. You could just go, just take that sport up, and I'll sign professionally. And before I know it, like Shane Duffy didn't actually kick a ball for a football team till he was 12. Didn't he?
I spoke to Dean Ashton. Was the same. Told me no real great love for the game, but started playing it, I think, when he was about 12, and just was quite good at it, and decided, I might as well stick with this because I'm good at it. And then obviously had quite a good career, but then curtailed by injury, which is a bit of a shame. But it is.
Liked him.
Yeah, he was a good player. Good striker.
West Ham, wasn't
he? Good striker. Yeah.
Yeah, I don't think actually Martin O'Neill played that much football either. And he was playing, I think, Gaelic football with Derry, and he was a student in Belfast with Queen's, and he was playing for Distillery. And they won the Irish Cup. He played really well in the final, and I think that's what possibly got him the move across Channel. I think he stayed with Distillery while they played in Europe. But I mean, I played against Barcelona actually, if I remember rightly. But it was probably just some scout saw him and he got the move across Channel, and he may never become the footballer and the manager that he was. You know.
The other very interesting one was one of my favourite Gaelic players of all time was Anthony Towell. There's footage of him in a reserve team game for Manchester United in around, I think it's around 92 or 91, something like that. Obviously was seen playing somewhere, got taken over by, I think, Sir Alex for a trial, but maybe just wasn't quite good enough.
So I think it's funny, Martin O'Neill, you mentioned there, obviously, and not really playing probably too much football till a certain age. He goes on to win the European Cups under Clough at Forest, and I still kind of have to think back and laugh of how he gave, Desailly and Cannavaro, he was giving them stick, wasn't he, on on BBC. I think it was the 2016 World Cup maybe, or 14, and they were sitting there laughing at him or something, and Adrian Chiles was trying to make it belittle Martin O'Neill, and he was quick to remind them that he won 2 European Cups, and then he turned to them two and asked them how many they'd won, and they were just completely silent.
No,
in his usual demeanour, the very angry demeanour.
And he went to the 82 work. He was a star of that. No, I don't think he went in 86. I can't remember now, actually. But he certainly
maybe it
was
was
a
a
star in
European
82.
Championship or something. I can't remember what they were jeering him about.
No, you're talking about him being a pundit.
Yeah,
But yeah,
but they were slagging him about something.
yeah, they were definitely talking about Champions League. I think for some reason, or pedigree, or quality, or something like this. And it did come across as if they didn't really know who he was or his background in the game.
Yeah, and he was like, I'd just like to remind these gentlemen that I've won 2 European Cups, and I'd like to know how many you've both won. And you can see Deso, he just been like, because I think it was Cannavaro. I'm not sure how good Cannavaro's English is, but Deso, he obviously would have spoke decent English having played with Chelsea. So it was just kind of funny. But your man Adrian Giles just didn't know what to say. He was just left speechless.
I think he won 2, didn't he? I think he would have won. Did he?
AC Milan.
Definitely won one at Marseille, which got him the move to Milan. Did he win one at? Did he win one at Milan?
Not sure.
And he would have won the World Cup as well, of course, with France. Yeah.
And the Euros as well, didn't he?
Oh, I think that's what it was. It was about winning World Cups, and I think he went back to them with winning the European Cup. So I think that's what it was. Yeah, sorry. But it was funny nonetheless.
Was.
Just the way he kind of just put them in their place. It was quite funny.
There was a stat there actually on the fouls during the game, and it just popped up there a minute ago. And we had committed 16 fouls, and the Romanians had committed 4 at this stage in the game. So
someone actually left a comment.
What are you trying to say, Gary?
Someone actually left a comment there. It was Vieira. David Salter says, not Desailly. So there you go.
Yeah, that's right.
All right, okay.
Thanks, David, for clearing that up.
Yeah.
So see that there, Dermot Lopez Productions says Radishew scored twice versus Colombia in USA 94. Which World Cup was it that was that the one with Escobar scoring the OG in 94?
Yeah, that was 94, yeah.
A great documentary on the 2 Escobars, and it kind of goes into detail on that. It was horrible what happened to him, but we won't go on to that because...
Yeah.
And that Romanian side as well in '94 was even probably better, wasn't it, Gary? Because they had...
Oh, well, they got to the semi-final. I think got to the semi-finals, wasn't it? They had a really great World Cup, yeah.
This is a funny comment. They kicked lumps out of that.
They did. It'd be interesting to get Georgie Hadji's memories on this game, actually, wouldn't it?
Hang on, something's going on. I don't know. Lopez quarter. Dermot, try put the comments in the one comment, and I'll be able to put them up for you. Saying something about the quarters being beaten by Sweden.
Another free kick there for the Romanians.
They were beaten in the quarterfinals by Sweden on pens. That's right.
Quarterfinals. Okay, yeah, my mistake. Yeah.
And that was also, remember in '94, Gary, they all bleach their hair?
Yeah, and they beat Argentina as well, famously. I think knocked Argentina out, wasn't it? Yeah.
Yeah.
It looks like it's absolutely roasting at this game. What time of day was that, Gary?
So it was, if I remember rightly, it was at 5 o'clock. Was it 5 or 6 o'clock? It was an early evening kickoff. I think maybe 5 o'clock, possibly 6. But yeah, it was still bright. The floodlights might have been on. There was no need for them, and it was still very warm. Yeah.
See, David Salter's comment there. Sorry, go on.
The other thing was the stadium. It was, as I said, was in the city centre. It was very enclosed. I mean, it was a fantastic atmosphere there. I haven't actually been back to the stadium since, but it's a brilliant atmospheric stadium, and but it's also very close and hot. So it probably felt very hot down on the pitch for the players because fans are very close to the pitch. Everybody's kind of on top of each other. And I was surprised when Will said the attendance was only 31,000. It felt a lot more than that. But
it's the official one I saw now. Whether that's correct?
Oh, it's probably accurate. You know, it's just my memory was it was pretty packed. But there wasn't any issue getting tickets, which was a good thing. There was definitely nobody locked out of that game.
You see the comment anyway. David Salter says Jack rarely played Quinn with Cascarino. Sorry. We missed Aldo's direct running. Do you think that was true?
Yeah, that's definitely right. I mean, Cascarino came on because Aldo went off injured. Yeah, it would have been very unusual to have seen Quinn and Cascarino together up front.
They like kind of in that sense.
Yeah, it was normally one or the other. I'm trying to think. Yeah, so he would have played one rather than two target men. Yeah, Aldo would have been missed, and he certainly. Well, we can't really say we missed him in the penalty shootout, but he certainly would have been nailed on to take a penalty.
Probably first. So, no other comments there. Just gonna go back and turn that off till we get some more comments. Guys, get your comments in if there's anything that you want us to talk about while we're watching the game as well. It's always nice to get some different topics to be talking about as well. So let's try not to keep it with the modern day though at the moment, as we're trying to keep it retro. How do you think we're playing though at the moment?
I think we're probably sitting back. It looks like at the moment Romania are taking the game to us a bit more than we are, and we're probably the happier to play on the counter-attack at the moment. I'd love to see the possession stats, but I'd imagine it's definitely in the Romanians' favour.
There's not a huge amount of time left. I assume they're going to go through the entirety of extra time.
I'd say they will, yeah. Even still, though, like, we know we say 0-0 or whatever, but it's actually been a quite enjoyable match in many ways because getting to actually watch the full game, you appreciate it a bit more. And look, there's a Dorky flag there.
Trust me, Paul, if you'd have watched the Egypt game, you were appreciating this.
It's interesting now. We'd more shots at goal there. We'd 5 rather than 4 for Romania. So
I think. Sorry, Gary, go on.
So just despite their possession, we probably maybe created more chances.
I think as well, I appreciate it more because I've been playing the Pro Evo with the players and the kits and everything, and it's so light that. Like, when I watch actually playing the games, and I'm just like, oh, this is class. Like, what a time it would have been to actually been able to watch football. And in many ways, Will, I'm quite jealous because obviously my first World Cup was 98 and we weren't even in it. But yours was this one. And you obviously got to witness history and a very good football team. Now, I'm not saying that's the team that I started watching from 98 onwards where Ireland weren't good, because they were. I mean, still had some players there. There was Cascarino, Quinn, Irwin. Obviously Roy was in there as well. But we had class players everywhere. There wasn't a really bad player in the squads. But back then, this team probably go down between them and 94 and probably 88 as well. I mean, between those three, they're probably the best ones. And I would never have any memory. I would never have any memory of those types of teams, you know.
Mm-hmm.
I think probably the 94 team, we actually got to 6th in the world by 1994 in the FIFA rankings. And we had actually beaten the Dutch and the Germans away from home in warm-up games for 94 and beat Italy in the first match. That was probably as good as we got. But I think looking back, we were probably a better team in 94, but this probably meant more. I mean, because it was new and there was no expectations. Whereas in '94, losing to Holland was a shock, and it was a disappointment. Yeah, I mean, it's the Dutch. Yes, I know, but we were probably we went into that game, I think, expecting to beat them. I would think we were favourites for that game.
Yeah,
and
I think as well, Gary, the way it happened with Packy's mistake, it almost felt like we didn't really do ourselves justice.
No, we didn't play it that day, and I mean, it
I don't
wasn't.
think we did. I think
I
think they were wrecked. I think the heat had really, the Mexico game, I think, killed a bit of
the Mexico game took. I mean, it was very hot, but actually the Dutch game, it was about 20 degrees Fahrenheit lower than it was for the Mexico game. So even though it was in Orlando, it was actually a much cooler day. So yeah, I think the Mexican game may have taken a lot out of the players, but I don't think we can blame the heat, and not that the Dutch are any more used to the heat than we are.
Yeah, no, I agree.
It was just things had gone a bit flat.
Exactly.
Great start to the World Cup, but it had gone flat.
Because I think I remember reading an article about Tommy Coyne, who started in the Mexico game, and when they flew back up from Orlando, he was so dehydrated. I don't know whether he passed out on the plane, but basically had to be laid out.
That's right. Yeah.
Yeah.
It was very serious.
And you kind of think of it. Yeah, and you kind of think of it, well, if that happened to him, and obviously Staunton was not a player to take to the sun, and just what it would have sapped out of you stamina-wise overall, I don't think the conditions long-term were great for the Irish lads in a tournament like that. If the same games had been played in France, yeah, okay, still warm, but
yeah, we would have been better suited. But I was actually, he was 27 at the time, and sitting in the stands was an ordeal at the Mexico game. I mean, I had to go out at half time, and I thought I was going to collapse. I had to go out and sit in the dark, and I just sat in the ground for 15 minutes. My then girlfriend, later wife, actually got me water and everything, just because I was actually suffering, and that was sitting watching the match. I don't know how people played in that game against Mexico. It was just
it looked incredible,
so oppressive. I mean, yeah.
And then the huge controversy with FIFA over the water bottles and the water bags was just, we take it for granted now. The players' safety and hydration is part of the norm, whereas back then it was. Were Ireland fined or something like that as well? It
was ridiculous. I mean, the other thing, the game kicked off. I think it was 12 noon kickoff. It was actually set to kick off for European TV, which was absolutely ridiculous. It was in the height of the sun in Orlando, in Florida, and the humidity there was just horrendous. It was, I mean, they've got not the next World Cup. They got the 2026 World Cup, and I would hope it's not going to be set up again for European TV. I think it's kind of more of a global game now, so that the games have to kick off at a reasonable time. So if it's...
Well, we say that. We're going to Qatar next, aren't we? So that's hardly going to do.
Yeah, I know. At least that's going to be in the winter, and that's actually... Those games will probably...
air-conditioned stadiums.
Yeah, and the games will probably kick off quite late because they're actually quite ahead of us, so they will play the games in the evening time. So they will suit European TV, actually. So I actually don't think the heat in Qatar will be a problem, but I think the heat in the USA, not to mind, Mexico's got some games as well, but they can't play at noon. They can't kick off at noon next time, in 2026. Well, I hope we're in it, and I hope we're in a position to be complaining about that stuff, because it would be a great place to be. I really would love to see us in another World Cup. It's been great we've qualified for the last 2 Euros. I really hope we make the Euros, especially the games in Dublin next June. But the World Cup is the pinnacle of football. To me, it's even bigger than the Olympics anyway. And it would be fantastic to be there, the whole world watching. So I'd love to qualify for another one.
It's the biggest sporting occasion, biggest watched sporting occasion.
No, I think the Olympics is, Paul.
Well, okay, but that's the most watched football event. But it's definitely.
Oh yeah, no, it is after the Olympics. Well, you've got. I think
it is the Olympics, because I spoke with Niall Quinn and he was saying it's the most watched thing, and then second is the Euros.
I think that the World Cup is bigger than the Olympics as well. For maybe it's just the final or something like that is
Maybe
bigger.
the final.
Yeah.
Well, it'll be interesting to see what the Super Bowl and the World Cup.
It's bigger than that.
Bigger than the Super Bowl?
The Euros is far bigger than the Super Bowl, actually. Yeah, the Super Bowl is. I mean, it's huge in the States, but it's not. It's not the same global appeal that something like the Euros
I
or
wouldn't
World
watch
Cup.
it. I just don't like it. It's not my thing. Whereas I think with the World Cup, I think you'll find that even people that don't like football, they do like the World Cup. They do like. You'll find people who have never ever watched football in their lives, and they come to you. Oh, I've seen that fella score a goal, and you hear it all the time. I think that's the beauty of the World Cup, isn't it? It's these types of things, and that's where people fall in love with football. One of my mates growing up, he never ever watched football, but he watched the World Cup, and obviously it's a bonus for Ireland, and even more so, because everybody gets together to watch the games and stuff. And you spoke last week about your friend thinking it was the end of the world when we played the Holland game, wasn't it? Yeah.
No, it was this game actually. This game was on a Monday evening, and Chuck. I may as well tell the story again, and people didn't hear it last week. He was working I was working living in Galway at the time, and Chuck was a bit late leaving work, left after, I think it was actually 5 o'clock Irish time, and the big thing at the time was the nuclear detente between the USA and USSR, and Chuck got into his car, and suddenly there was nobody. I mean, there were no buses, there were no cars, there were no people on the street, and he had to drive right across Galway out to Salt Hill. And as he drove and didn't see a single person, a single car, a single bus, he had decided there had been a nuclear holocaust. And he was hoping to get to Salt Hill to die with his wife and daughter in time. And he came in and saw the match was on, totally forgot about the match. And but I mean, that's
what it was like to live in Ireland.
Yeah, but I mean, that's what the World Cup is like, though. It's not just, I mean, it is in Ireland and the country stops and everybody watches it. But you have it around the world as well. I mean, you take places like Peru. I think Peru had something like 30,000 fans in Russia. Egypt had something like 50,000. There were so many Egyptians going around Russia 2 years ago. It was unbelievable.
And ironically, Gary, do you know, across the water where it's the home of football, they're not that interested in following the national team. A lot of my friends who would work in football journalism, no interest in following England. Don't go to England games. Don't like the atmosphere. A lot of them think with some of the players who play for the country and don't play for the country and this sort of thing. And there is definitely not the same all round. I think everybody gets behind the team that there is here. Yes, there's definitely, obviously, a lot of people who will go to games and support them, but I don't think England stops when the World Cup is on, unless they get to a semi-final or a quarter-final.
Well, it did for Russia. It did at the later stages. I think they don't stop so much at the group stages. I think there had been, if you go back, maybe remember World Cups like 2006. 2002, 98. I mean, they were expecting to win those, and it was maybe the expectations were too high. Yeah. Even this World Cup now, England lost the semi-final on penalties. The World Cup started out as a disaster for them, and I mean, Bobby Robson was being pillared in the newspapers. The 1-1 draw with us was considered a disaster. I actually, the day after this game, I was at Spain, Yugoslavia, and Verona. And we met loads of England fans going in, and England were playing Belgium that later that night in Bologna, and they actually, English people, English football fans, I remember quite a few of them supported Newcastle. They were saying, "No, we love going to the World Cup. We don't like going to England games," and because I was stunned. I mean, why they'd not go and watch their own country, because people don't normally do that. I mean, you don't see it.
And it wasn't exactly a family atmosphere supporting England in those days, was it?
No, it wasn't. No, it wasn't as it was. No, I mean, there was serious concerns about hooliganism, and they were pushed out onto Sardinia. They actually, FIFA had to come up with some incredibly complicated seeding to get England ahead of Belgium, to actually stick England out in Sardinia. Because Belgium should have been the 6th seed, but they found a way to seed England. And it was actually absolutely laughable what they did with some kind of I'd have to look it up again, but it was absolutely ridiculous. But they wanted England off on the island. They wanted out in Sardinia. Didn't want as many fans travelling. But of course, once they came out of the group, they were travelling around. There was trouble in Bologna. We ended up went to their quarter final against Cameroon down in Naples and that semi final in Turin, and it was okay. I mean, there wasn't. It wasn't a pleasant atmosphere at times, but you just try and avoid trouble. But I think if England do well in a tournament, the country does stop and it does get behind them as well. Mm-hmm. But it's not just even the major footballing powers. It's a lot of if you take football really has become the world game now, and I mean all over the likes of Asia, Africa, South America, Central America. I mean, all these countries stopped for the World Cup. And even actually we were talking about USA 94, where the World Cup got forgotten about in America. I mean, we were going around and people didn't know the World Cup was on. But in recent years, it really has taken off. Since they actually beat Algeria in South Africa in 2010, I think football has really taken off in the States, and they're much more knowledgeable about it. They know it's on, and it was a major disappointment for them to miss out in Russia.
Well, I think another thing it kind of comes back to is obviously the stuff with Maggie Thatcher back in the back at that time. I know there's lots of Scousers, people up in northern England. There was a big divide, wasn't there? So they wouldn't have followed them. And I know there was a lot of Scousers who'll be cheering on Ireland through World Cups and stuff like that. Probably still do. Due to the fact maybe, I know players like Kevin Sheedy there taking the corner now, and Aldridge, Lawrence, and these types of players, that they probably had much more of a kind of bond with them, having them playing.
Well, it's not even that. If you look at the areas around Manchester and Liverpool, which back in those, like the earlier times, were very working class, there was a lot of emigration from Ireland over. So like, even if you read something like Jason McAteer's book, I think he talks about like how the family would just be like, well, we support Ireland. And even though Jason was born in England, it was kind of like, I don't know, you're kind of Irish almost. And there was huge amounts of Irish over there. So that's probably as well why a lot of them supported Ireland, because it was, second generation or whatever.
Oh, yeah. But a lot of them grew up in Irish family. I mean, Gary Breen famously went into school the day after Stuttgart in an Irish shirt, Yeah. I mean, he grew up very much in an Irish family. There was no way he was ever playing for England. I think Kevin Kilbane grew up in an Irish family as well.
It, doesn't he? He really kind of went back to his Mayo roots and stuff.
No.
The only thing English about Kev's is his accent, and that's it. Nothing else.
And I mean, a lot of the fans as well. I mean, and I'm even going back to the 80s, that game I went to, my first away game in Rotterdam. I mean, we came overland, we're coming from Limerick, but we picked up maybe about half the travelling support came from London, and it was the Irish diaspora. There was so many Irish in the early 80s. I mean, the 80s was a very depressing time in Ireland, jobs-wise, everything-wise. So many people emigrated, and a lot of the fans, particularly from London, this was their identity, with the way of identifying with home. I mean, they would go and support our national football team, and they'd go to the away games. So they'd probably a bit easier as well, I suppose, to travel from London to Rotterdam and to Brussels and to Paris in those days. But there would be so many of the London Irish in particular going to games at that time, and before my time as well.
That doesn't surprise me, because obviously the London branch, the Republic of Ireland supporters, brought us over, and they were celebrating their 35th anniversary there last year. But just seeing, and you see the same lads coming even over to Dublin for the home games and stuff like that as well, and they just love it. I think they find it frustrating sometimes that because they have an English accent, people take to them differently. I know that's a big thing that they mentioned to me.
I hate that, and it's normally actually the people that do it are people that don't normally go to games, or they're at their first or second away game, and because I mean, they may be second or even third generation Irish, but they are very fanatical fans, and they go on a regular basis to you'll see them everywhere, not just in the places that are easy to get to, but you see them in the Moldovas and the Kazakhstans and wherever else, the Albanias, and yeah.
You look at someone like Jerry Reardon, who is obviously involved with the FAI, played for Spurs, and he's been going over, how many years. I'm sure he knows you very well, Gary. And
Oh yeah, no, Jerry well, yeah.
so you think of someone like him who's a fanatic as well, and kind of all he talks about when you see him is Ireland and going to the games, and he just loves it. He eats it all up, and all of them seem to be like that, And I think Mick got up on stage at the thing and he was saying it, he was even getting it a little bit, I have an English accent. To some people that makes me not Irish, but when I put on that green shirt, you knew who I was representing, type of thing. You know what I mean? You got to just look around that team there. Like, how many of the team, were actually home-born? You know what I mean? There was a lot of players who, like Sheedy, was born in Wales. Aldridge, Liverpool. Cascarino, Townsend.
Yeah, Chris Morris as well. Yeah.
So there was
Mick, as you said,
Yeah, so
Ray Houghton.
And I'm sure on the bench in Scotland as well. I'm sure on the bench there's more. Because Cascarino came on, didn't he? But like, even then, the lads didn't care. They knew once you came into that dressing room, and you wanted to put on the shirt.
I think that's the key thing, because I think when they came into the dressing room, everybody, whether they had grown up with an Irish identity or whether it was, let's say, representing the land of their grandparents, once they put on the shirt, you could never question the commitment of any of them. And I mean, the likes of Andy Townsend, John Aldridge, Ray Houghton, they ran through brick walls. You couldn't question their commitment in the green shirt. So,
but I think Townsend actually was on the podcast with Stan Collymore there a couple of months ago, and he spoke about what we just said there. And he did used to get stuff, abuse, from Irish fans saying to him, "Oh, well, you're not Irish" or whatever. And he says it really, really affects him still when people say it's like, I gave my all playing for Ireland, I captained them, and
he absolutely did. I mean, I to be honest, maybe later on, I think later on in the 90s things went a bit sour, but I can't imagine too many people, you couldn't question the commitment of any of these players. I mean,
Terry
if anything,
Phelan loves Ireland as well.
Yeah.
I'm talking to him, like, he just loves it. We was obviously on the podcast a couple of weeks ago, but just hearing the way and the memories he had and how he just loves the Irish people and stuff like that. Still spoke about, his roots in Tubbercurry and Sligo, and it's just lovely to hear people like him who often talk about their roots and try to get back and go there and stuff like that. And that's the thing. It's people who buy into their family history, and I love catching up with people. When they come over to the games, or if I'm over, I love catching up with them and getting to know them and hearing their story about how they got into football and stuff like that. Because at the end of the day, that's what it's all about. Got to figure throughout this rewatch, we pretty much got to know the reason you got into football, Gary, and the reason obviously you got into football, Will, because it was your first World Cup. So there is so many backstories into how people, and then obviously Will follows Chelsea. The Townsend thing that kind of resonates there with him. So there is such a backstory that you kind of find out, and I think that's a beautiful thing about football, and especially going back and watching these nostalgic things, is you get to find out people's football story in a way, as well as obviously, as I say, when you meet the lads or whatever. But at this stage anyway, we're 0-0. It's 90 minutes played, extra time. What's the feeling amongst the fans in the stadium, Gary?
Yeah, well, if you go back to those days, probably fitness levels were probably not what they are today. I think it's fair to say, and a lot of games,
the alcohol levels were though.
Yeah, they were, and I think the feeling probably was we were heading to penalties more so at that stage. You kind of felt, yeah, maybe someone could nick it in extra time, but the game, my memory is it certainly started to slow down a bit after this, and as happened a lot in extra time. And I think we were kind of thinking, yeah, penalties and God, it's a lottery. What's going to happen? See, we just kicked off now in extra time. Yeah.
Just updating the comments. There's no comments coming in. Maybe we're boring people. Only 2 people online. What's going on there, guys? Get your comments in. Myself, Gary Spain, and Will Dalton doing the retro rewatch. I've actually been enjoying. I have to say, when I come off these every week, and I think I text you, Will, because I usually say it to you when we get off air, Gary. For some reason, you always take ages to get off the thing, but I always just say how much I enjoy doing this, because you go back and there's still so much to talk about, and obviously it's something to do during this time when we don't really have a lot to be doing. Will, I know you're not doing a whole lot. You'd be texting me going mad, so any chance we actually get to do it like this, you're all over it. And then Gary, these are probably the only times I get to talk to you throughout the week, so I love doing these, and brings back so many good memories, as I say, and stories and stuff like that.
I know, great times. I love looking back on them, because I suppose I was very fortunate in that I had just finished college, started work. I was able to afford to go to Euro 88 and then go to Italia 90, go to USA. They just came at the right time for me. And but they're great to look back on them, and just brings back fantastic memories.
Yeah, I just so jealous of not being actually able to witness this in real time. I wasn't born, so I think my cousin texted me earlier going, I wish we were born earlier, because I was after watching that the Howard's Way documentary, and I was just like, yeah, you wouldn't be saying that if we were older, though. I just hope in many ways that, I don't care how Stephen Kenny's first kind of 10 games go. I'm happy enough to kind of just see how things pan out and not get, not be demanding Kenny out. If things do go wrong, I'm not saying that they will. But I just hope that he's allowed to be given time, like all the other international managers before him. And I mean this in terms of other countries. You look at Northern Ireland under Michael O'Neill, and then you look at Wales under Giggs. They were given time before, anything was said. Chris Coleman obviously kind of laid a bit of a gauntlet there for Giggs to come in, but Giggs kind of changed that up, as you know, Gary. You'd spoken about it before, how he changed and started bringing people through, and the stuff that's being done. I spoke to Andy Reid the other day, and just hearing him and how passionate he is about underage players and developing players, and I really do think it's an exciting time for the Irish fans and the Irish players and anyone involved, because he went on to speak about Trapattoni and how nothing was being developed. We had short-term success. We got to the Euros. Maybe we didn't do that well at the Euros. Here's Davey O'Leary. So
David O'Leary on, Steve Staunton going off, so.
Yeah, well, we didn't do obviously that well at that Euros, but there was nobody being bled in, and even at that point, Seamus Coleman was still starting to make a name in the Premier League, wasn't he? James McLean just about got into the squad after a good, impressive campaign. I think it was Sunderland. And there was just no real young players being brought through. But when you heard, it'll be released now during the week, but whatever you do, just give it a listen to what Andy Reid has to say, and how things are being developed from Ruud Doctor, and how they all kind of work together, bringing players through. And I think maybe you've seen little fruits of it coming through with Stephen Kenny working with Mick and all the other managers. Because they have a meeting once a month where all the managers from the under-14s right up to the senior team all sit down and they all watch what the managers have to. They'll have like a presentation and they'll speak about their games and stuff like that, and obviously their key players and so on. And I think it's beneficial because all the managers are aware of all the younger players that are coming through, and this is the type of kind of things that I think a lot of bigger nations, the Spains and all these types.
Well, that's the standard though for pretty much now every top level club. You need that kind of fluidity throughout your management structure if you're going to have a long term football. Like we talk about directors of football and all this sort of stuff, and that's kind of along with signings and different things. That's kind of their
That's kind of what
portfolio.
Root Doctor is.
I think the thing, and I think Stephen's done a very good job with the 21s, and he's had a very good stint with them and brought players through. But I think, unfortunately, with Stephen, what he's going to be judged on is, and what he has to be judged on, I suppose, is how he gets the team together on the pitch. Because, those under 21 players, there may be one or two of them he may be able to incorporate. Obviously, we've had this bit of a break and stuff. But for the start of his reign, he's going to pretty much have to use what Mick has left him. So maybe one or two come in. And it's going to be interesting to see how he matches up as a manager with his tactics, his game plan, and managing top-level players, which is something he hasn't done before.
But he has to be given time as well, I think.
I'm just saying it's going to be interesting to see if he's able, because some managers, I'm not saying Stephen won't, but some managers don't cut it at the top level, fail at that regard.
If you look at the way Michael O'Neill took over initially at Northern Ireland, he had a terrible first campaign. I mean, their qualifying campaign for Brazil, I think they drew and lost to Luxembourg. They dropped points. They were very poor. I can't remember who they were playing now, but they could. There was enough there. The fans could see the green shoots, and luckily for them, the IFA could as well. And they stuck with him, and then they qualified for France and had a fantastic tournament in France. Came so close to qualifying for Russia, and I know he's going to be a massive loss to Northern Ireland now as well. I think Stephen Kenny is probably in the same boat as Michael O'Neill taking over our team.
He was successful in the league as well, wasn't he?
Yeah, well, Michael O'Neill was pretty successful in the league as well. He actually got Shamrock Rovers to the group stages of the Euro. No, Stephen's probably done better and he's won more, but it is something similar in that it is going to be, I think it's going to take time. Yeah. And I suppose what could well be judged in is there's Daniel Timofte coming on there for Romania, key substitution.
Two key substitutions.
Yeah, we didn't know that at the time. But I suppose it's a bit unfortunate for Stephen that the playoff is going to come against Slovakia quite early in his reign, because I would have been one to consider judging him for our 2024 qualifying campaign. I think qualifying for Qatar, there's only 13 places for Europe. I know I said I'd love to see us in another World Cup. It's very difficult now for us to qualify with only 13 UEFA spots.
I think a good comment there, Gary, when you get a sec to read it.
Okay, could you read it for me, Paul? Would you mind?
It says it's from David Salter. He says Kenny's upcoming reign reminds me a little bit of Mick McCarthy's first reign, where he had an aging squad with serious talent in the youth ranks. I would give him a pass on his first campaign.
Yeah, I agree. That's the kind of point I was trying to make, that the key test for Stephen will be qualifying for Germany 2024. But of course, unfortunately now we've also got the playoffs for, well, is it still Euro 2020, but the finals next June. And with the finals on home soil, it's just so important that we qualify. So, but I would hope Stephen would be given the time and not be judged on. Now, look, hopefully it's great, and hopefully he'll start off like a bomb and we'll be flying. I mean, he's done a fantastic job with the under-21s. He didn't need time with them, but I think it's a massive job, and it's going to. I hope he will be given the time if he needs it.
Me too. There's another comment there from Connor McDonald. Hang on. It says, in my opinion, can you hear me okay? Yeah?
Yeah.
In my opinion, Connor McDonald, in my opinion, people don't realise how bad games can affect young players, and the Troy Parrott hype needs to cool down. Mourinho won't give him a chance. He says Mourinho, sorry for spelling, won't give him a chance. But yeah, I think the stuff with Troy Parrott does need to cool down, but there is players there who I think are able to start stepping up. And I think, and that was kind of bring me back to my earlier point, is how they're doing things at the managers meeting where the links down, the likes of Aaron Connolly getting called up, Troy Parrott getting a call up. I know it was for friendlies, but Connolly got to play he came on as a sub after scoring the 2 goals against Spurs, and then he started against
he's had
Switzerland.
He did, yeah. He came, and actually, people were saying he should have come on earlier in Georgia. I think he made a big difference when he came on for those last 10 minutes.
So I think I think in some cases Mick deserves a bit of credit for that, because he's kind of exposed them to a big crowd like that. People will say maybe the New Zealand game wasn't really a big crowd, but there's going to be players there who I think have kind of been in and around the squad and haven't really been given a proper chance. Say someone like Josh Cullen, who I think now, with Stephen coming in there, is a real opportunity for him to actually stake a claim for a spot in the team, because I think at this stage now, I think Glenn Whelan's time is probably past, especially now with this virus and stuff. I think unfortunately for him, he was obviously looking to get in for the squad if we got to the Euros next summer. I don't think it's going to happen for him, because I think Josh Cullen's going to be ahead of him. I think James McCarthy, if fit, will be ahead of him as well. I think Stephen Kenny said he has already been in touch with him. And then even at that, I think realistically, the way Jason Malumbi speaks about Sean Williams at Millwall, he's another one who can play that position. So there's 3 there that I think Stephen Kenny would probably favour more. I know Sean Williams isn't young like the ones I mentioned, but when he did play for Ireland, I thought he was quite good at getting the ball and kind of moving out and stuff like that from the back, and getting the ball back to goal or back to the opposition and turning out and playing confidently with it. Whereas I think Whelan can be a bit side to side, although his passing range is quite good. But it'll be interesting to see what way Mick sets up Stephen sets up the actual team compared to Mick, in terms of will he have more people attacking, or will he be defensive minded? Because I spoke to Richie Towell and Jason Malumbi, and the way they speak about Stephen, and he just wants to win, and he doesn't care about the opposition. He'll go there and try and mastermind a plan to win. And I think if that's going to be the case, I think Irish fans have to respect the fact that he's going out there to win, and if he does lose, he's gone there to win. I think maybe Irish fans will actually get behind that mentality, and I hope they do.
Yeah, I think he'll play very much a positive style of football as well, home or away, as you say, try and win the games. But certainly, probably more of a different style than we're used to. I think we'll certainly have a lot more possession in games under Stephen than we've been used to under Mick or Martin O'Neill, or Trapp, actually, for that matter, either. But it may take time to get that style, to make those changes, to change the formation. And I suppose the Nations League would be the ideal way to do that. And I would hope we get our 6 Nations League games in before we get to play Slovakia in the playoff. Because it would certainly be very... I still don't know. We don't know what the schedule is. The thinking is we'll at least have some of those games, but Stephen will get some of those under his belt anyway.
Well, I think that thing about Stephen Kenny as well is that I don't think he'd be afraid to fire a young lad in there. Like, I could see a midfield with Malumbi, Knight, and just throw a name at me, maybe Josh Cullen, or maybe
Josh
James
Cullen.
Yeah,
I wouldn't rule it out. Certainly one or two of them anyway.
In the playoffs,
yeah.
You know, I could see that because they're 3 different types of midfield, but they're energetic and they're in amongst it. And I think.
But can you afford to, realistically? Because if you do that, it backfires. You've got 3 kids in the midfield and you get beaten 6-0. How's that to start your?
Well, I mean, you could see them in the Nations League before the playoffs. So I think.
Oh, completely. I think, Gary, I completely agree with you. I'd say Stephen Kenny is praying the Nations League is before the playoffs, and as anybody would, because to go straight into that would be really harsh on any manager, especially at the international level, where you don't. It's not as if you can go, right, lads, we're going to get in 2 weeks early to prep for this. You can't. You have the exact amount of days that you're given when the clubs or the players are released from the clubs, and that's what you got to deal with. And then it's essentially a cup final. with a group of players who you don't know, whose tactics are your tactics they don't know, that's going to be really tough. Whereas it comes the other way, the Nations League, okay, if he loses a couple of games in the Nations League and tries a few things out, you'd kind of give him a pass on that. I think it's going to be really difficult. Playoffs are first. And I think for his own sake, I think he would. I know a lot of people are saying that he wants to be less conservative and more dynamic with the game he plays, but I think for his own future, I think a little bit of conservatism in the playoffs, if they come first, will be the wise way. Go in. If we don't win them, fine, but have a respectable performance in that, and then move on to right. Let's try and kind of see if we want to experiment a bit and get my game plan going and see how the players react to him as a manager. And as I said to you before, it'll be very interesting for Stephen as a manager to see what level he's at. As in, can he? Because he has to acknowledge that he has to rise up to the level of international management. It's by far the biggest thing he's ever done.
But I think he's helped with the fact he has Andrews and Duff there as well. So they will have had, that experience under their belts, not as a manager, but playing in those tournaments as well is very good.
That's the key thing, though. Yes, they can give him a certain amount of experience and knowledge as almost his lieutenants, but it's them managing at the top when the decision stops with you on an international level, and you're up against a quality international side. If you're playing in Germany or in Italy, and you're facing a manager, an international manager, say Mourinho or Klopp, or international managers by that time or something, that's when you're really going to be tested. And he's got the opportunity, and best of luck to him, and let's hope it does work out, because I think the group of players that are coming through the under-21s are a very good group, and they're a bit of a generation that we could do well on and potentially reach some of the heights that we're watching tonight, hopefully.
Yeah, well, you look at, as I mentioned earlier with Rude Doctor and stuff, the way they're doing things, our underage record is very good. I know you follow it very closely, Gary, is that we've qualified for pretty much all the tournaments that we could.
Yeah, I mean, take some examples. I think we've been in 4. I know we hosted one. We've been in 4 of the last 5 under-17 championships. Our under-19s got to the semi-finals in Armenia last year, and we had again been in good shape to qualify. Well, I presume all those tournaments are gone at this stage for this year. But yeah, there's a lot of talent. Even going back down, Paul, you were with me at the under-15 game out in Abbottstown back in January. And I was very impressed with a guy, Kevin Zeffy, on the left wing out of Shamrock Rovers. Looks a real talent, There's talent at all levels. And that was the team that went and beat England, wasn't it, in St. George's Park, Yeah. So there is a lot of talent coming through right down from the under-21s that had done so well under Stephen, and hopefully can still qualify for the finals. We're in great shape. At least to get a playoff, I think, more or less guaranteed. But it'll be Italy or ourselves who will win the group.
Gary, can I ask you a question? I know we're obviously talking about the Ireland, but just back to the match for a minute. David O'Leary's been in the thick of the action, and I remember him coming on, and I remember there was a bit of an air around him that he wasn't kind of that liked or something. Obviously, being a 7-year-old, but. Do you remember there being a bit of a shock at David O'Leary coming on in this match?
Yeah, well, I mean, there was a shock because he came on at left back as well. David O'Leary was a hugely talented player, and he would have been first choice before Jack arrived. And I think it probably went back to a tournament in Iceland, which was actually made it really was the start of, it was Jack's 3rd and 4th game, but we actually won the tournament, and I think the squad gelled together. And I'm not sure what the issue was, whether David wasn't picked initially, but then he was picked and he didn't go. I can't remember the reason now, but Jack then refused to pick him for a couple of years after that. He didn't bring him to Euro 88. I remember he famously picked Pat Scully, who was in the reserves at Arsenal for a game against Tunisia, ahead of David O'Leary when he was looking for a centre half. he got rehabilitated then, came back into the squad, made the squad for Italy, but it had become, even though he was a hugely talented player with Arsenal, had become kind of a bit part player in the squad. And I mean, you saw him there coming on. There was no way he was ever getting in ahead of Mick McCarthy or Kevin Moore. He came on there at left back. And
You're gone sideways there, guy.
sorry.
Oh, there you go. No, you're good.
Yeah. So David O'Leary came on there at left back, which was totally out of position, but it was probably actually I can't remember why Chris Hughton wouldn't have come on there. I'm not sure actually.
I don't think Chris was on the bench that day, was he?
Oh, maybe not then. Okay, yeah.
Didn't really give the
I
line.
have a funny feeling he wasn't.
Okay.
No, I'm looking at the bench. It was Ronnie, Tony, Dave, John Sheridan, and Jerry Payton. Because you could only have 5 in those days.
That's right. You couldn't use the whole squad. Yeah.
It was kind of, you know, bit of an odd one.
Yeah, so you probably had David O'Leary to cover in case anything happened to Mick or Kevin Moore, you know. But it's great the way it worked out.
Sure is.
This is it. Because again, I don't think David was known as a penalty guru, was he?
Oh no, absolutely. I don't think I'd never seen him take a penalty before that. He would have been probably just ahead of Packy Bonner in the ones if you're picking who's going to take a penalty. I mean, I certainly wouldn't have predicted it. I don't know anyone who could have really claimed it and said, yeah, I always knew he was going to take it, you know.
I did think he was a bit less of a rugged defender, if you forgive me, than Mick or Kevin.
He was definitely a classy ball-playing centre-half, but a really top defender. I mean, he was a really good player.
He was a record appearance holder for Arsenal.
Yeah, 750 something. Am I right?
Yeah, it's probably something like that. He was there for years, and a mainstay on a really good Arsenal side.
You see, just kind of because we're talking about being good on the ball and that type of stuff. I think as well. I think people forget that there's someone in there who's just kind of finding his feet in international football. Weirdly enough, it's John Egan, and he's been unbelievable this season. Class. I think he'll thrive under Stephen Kenny's management as well as Matt Doherty. I think Seamus will be involved, but I don't think he'll be first choice this time next season. I think Seamus would be doing well to start for Everton. So if he's not playing regularly, I don't think Stephen will have him as first choice. Or if he does, he might try and alter the formation to fit him in, I think.
I saw one.
We talked about a back 3 before and tried to fit Seamus into that maybe and use Matt and Enda Stevens as wing backs.
He's done that a little bit with Ancelotti, where he's came on and played a kind of right side. When Everton are in possession, he's getting forward, and then when they're defensive, he's just sitting in as a centre back, while Sidibe would get forward. That's kind of what he was doing, but he hasn't played it much.
I was at Wolves home game with Watford. I think it was around October.
You were working, was it?
Yeah, and I have to say, Matt Doherty was exceptional that day. I knew Matt was good, but I think he was man of the match that day. He was just superb. Spoke to him after the game. Never seen somebody just sweat as much. But he was in great form. You could tell he's a player who is in the prime of his career.
Yeah.
And it is so frustrating that you have to choose between him and Seamus, who's obviously our captain, obviously one of the best players in the squad. And it's just Sod's law that the two of them, their two perfect positions are there. And I think, in defensive Mick, it's terribly difficult. I think if it was club football and you have two players in the same position that are vying for one spot, you'd have more time to go, right, let's try and maybe fix the system around them. Because you're seeing them more day in, day out. You can practice more. You can go, right, let's try this out. But with international football, you have so little time with the players to try and get things like that working. But who knows, maybe Stephen could find a way where Seamus is in that side, and we can unleash Matt, because I don't think he's been unleashed on international football yet, and I think he's definitely one of our key players. And as you said about John Egan too, John I think has just grown. Shane has been in and out of the Brighton team, which surprised me because I saw Brighton against Watford at the start of the season, and him and Lewis Dunk were immense. And to the point of we were actually chatting after the game saying, God, I wonder the two of them got to be, I think this was opening day of the season, or definitely before the transfer window closed. We're kind of saying, are these two going to be on the list of maybe, some other clubs, snooping around Brighton maybe for a bit of value late on transfer deadline day? Now, they haven't moved, but Shane, I thought, definitely. And John, it could be the same as well, looking ahead into the new club season. The two of them look like centre-halves who could definitely do a job. I'm not sure whether Brighton are going to survive or not. And you'd want Shane playing at the top level. And John, obviously, well, they're going to survive. They're probably going to miss out on a European place now.
Well, they could even get the Champions League still. I think Sheffield United will be in Europe and possibly still in the Champions League.
What the story with the season is, I think Will means.
Yeah.
No, I think we're done, boys. I don't think we're coming back.
Well, none of the players want to play. So, I've seen Richarlison coming out, Troy Deeney, who's the other lad?
Troy Mings,
Clem
Tyrone Mings' comment. Tyrone Mings' comment was superb. Did you see that?
Yeah, he was spot on as well, yeah.
Bang on. And if you can't get a majority of the players who want to do it, it's, I think it's just ridiculous at this stage.
I actually agree with that, but I think they're coming back. I think they're going to just move hell and high water and get the Premier League back, just because there's so much money involved in the TV and everything.
There is, but time is against us now, because we're talking, it's now 15th of May. The players have been back in to have a few medical tests on their own. You're going to take at least a month. So if they were to start tomorrow, that's the 16th of June you could start. You need at least a month's worth of play. That's the 16th of July. They're going to have to make a decision by the 30th of May. I think that's when UEFA have said they want decisions made, because we're now running into pre-season of next year.
It's a knock-on effect as well, Will, as you kind of touched on.
Oh, huge, because it knocks onto, like, we're talking about European seasons, we're talking about international football. I think what people have to realise at the top of the game is they're going to be losers somewhere in this. But I think what they've got to try and do is share the loss around evenly. Everybody's going to lose a bit of money, clubs, players, the whole works. And I think, from the players' point of view, if you want to look at it from a mental side, it's actually probably been very good for them. It gives the world's best players a bit of a break, which I'm sure a lot of them haven't had in a very long time. And I think players are going to be able to get past niggling injuries they may have had, recover well, get a proper pre-season under their belts. Like, when was the last team you could say nearly every squad going into, if they were to avoid it now, every squad in the Premier League could go back to pre-season training with every single player available? Because the majority would have cleared.
Avoid it, Will. I mean, you've the discussion now. I've seen two different ways of calculating the league table. One with Bournemouth going down, and the other with West Ham going down. I mean, how do you decide?
I think that. Sorry,
it's simple. You stop it where it is. That to me is the fairest way of how it's done. As I said, there's going to be losers, but I think you give Liverpool the title, because I think they deserve it. I don't think anybody can say they haven't.
Yeah, you can't argue with that. Yeah.
I think the top four, you just go, right, look, that's the top four. And then relegation, I think you don't do relegation this year. I think you go to Leeds and you go to West Brom and say, look, it is what it is. We're going to cover your expenses. Because then if you were to do promotion and relegation, then you've got 4 teams in the playoffs, and then the teams outside the playoffs.
But
So
Leeds and West Brom have spent 60, 70 million to get
so the
up this
cheapest
year.
way is cover their losses, cover what they need for maybe them to be at the same level to go again next season. Because usually when a team tries, I'm not saying they go for broke, but it ain't far off when you're pushing for that. To me, that's the fairest way to do it. Broadcasters are going to have to realise they're going to, have to give a bit when it comes to money. The same with clubs, and then get a full pre-season in and build up. We're at May. We'd be finished now. We'd probably be finished this weekend.
Last
This
weekend,
weekend.
wasn't it?
Was it last weekend?
It's usually
But it's
I
around.
think
an FA
I think it was
Cup
this
final.
weekend. I think it could have been this weekend.
Let's say that.
Yeah.
And I said clubs could take a benefit out of no international football this summer. Don't have to release the players from that. All come back fit. And as I said, there is no perfect way to do it. And if clubs and organisations are looking for a way where they're not going to lose out any money, it doesn't exist. Because if you do it the other way, you do promotion and relegation, you're going to have people taking legal cases. Okay, if you didn't do the relegation, didn't do the promotion, and Leeds and West Brom took cases, well, that could be it. I think, the clubs outside the top four, pushing for the top four, are just going to, again, what do you do? Somebody has to lose out.
I think, could you do a relegation playoff maybe? Well, I don't know how they would do it, but I think that could be a fair way so everyone has to play their way to safety, except maybe Norwich are pretty much destined to go down at this rate.
But then how do you do that, Paul? Because you have 3 teams in the Premier League, and you've 2 top teams in the Championship, and another 4 in the playoff places right now, and then maybe teams just slightly out of that.
Who might have got into the playoffs,
Exactly. So there's too many, I think.
Relegate Norwich and bring up.
But then.
Yeah,
there's no easy answer. There definitely isn't.
It's too hard to.
Yeah, I think we're just getting the 120 minutes. The 120 minutes are just up. I think the final whistle is just about to go here. Yeah, there it is.
Gone. But yeah, I'm just look. If it means everyone comes back healthy and the vaccine or something is found, that's more what I want. I can put it off for a little while longer, and survive on these types of games that we're watching now. But I do think Niall Quinn's going to do everything in his power to get the League of Ireland back, which I think could be a really good thing if he can make it happen, because anybody would tune in to watch it, and if you can get it streamed, which he was talking about on LOA Weekly, about getting it streamed, that you can bring a whole new audience of Irish fans who maybe didn't watch League of Ireland on TV because it was never really on TV, So the fact is they'll actually get to watch it, and it could be an ideal opportunity for Irish football to thrive a little bit in that regard till other football. I know Bundesliga is there, but the Irish football season is going to run its course over the time. Probably.
Well, imagine you did a show like they do on they were doing on BT, where they have round the grounds. You could feature one main game, or you could just have it in studio, show one main game live on say one channel, have another channel where you've basically gone from game to game. They were doing it in the Champions League. It's brilliant. So you were covering all the games and seeing the best bits. So there's a chance of the Brandywell for Derry City. Let's go there, off to the Brandywell, and we see, wherever.
Like Soccer Saturday, kind of.
Yeah, but with action.
Yeah, no, that's what I'm saying, yeah. But it'd be like Soccer Saturday, but you can see the goals, yeah.
But the League of Ireland is obviously very different to the Premier League. Obviously, all that sort of stuff. So that would be a lot, I'd say, easier to do, I think, than logistically for the Premier League, with the time frame, with the Summer League and the Winter League, and where they are in the Premier League, and with next season coming.
Sheedy.
Kevin Sheedy just sent Long the wrong way there. A nice penalty to start to equalise at Romanians to score the first one. Yeah.
Head down. Bang.
There's no stopping that. Yeah.
Bullet.
Straight down the middle. You're just hoping the keeper moves.
good player. But yeah, Will, sorry, you were saying there.
No, that's just it. I think just to echo what you said, Paul. Premier League football is not worth one person's life in the UK, and unfortunately, they just don't seem to. They haven't got hold of the situation in the UK as I think we have here, and they're saying, it'd be great to get it back for people's mental health and all that. Well, it's kind of like, what about their physical health? So, and I think a lot of players feel the same way as well, that they shouldn't be put at risk for essentially what is 9 games of football.
Yeah, well, that's why I think it's good with the League of Ireland lads today. I think 87% of them were in favour of doing something. And I seen Jack Byrne coming out and saying it's a real opportunity that people would actually, the interest would be there to watch, watch us or watch the league. It's just, like, I remember the game Shamrock Rovers against Dundalk. I'm sorry, the 3-2 game. There recently, myself and you were at, Gary. That
it
was
was great,
absolute
fantastic game.
Advert for the league and the quality that's within the league.
And Paul, I think what you're trying to say as well is that if they were able to get it done, and my whole thing is if you can get it done safe.
Yeah, that's what I mean.
Right?
Yeah, sorry.
I think because there is so little football everywhere else, so little sport, you've got this major magnifying glass on it, which
100%.
elevates it hugely. So,
get in there, Ray. I think that's what Niall Quinn's trying to, sort out too. I did a good interview with Roy O'Donovan, and I think he would have worked with Niall at Sunderland, and he seems really excited by the kind of commercial side of things that Niall Quinn will bring to Irish football. So I think, and you know him, Will, so you'll know more than me, more so. And I know I was up at a thing in Dundalk, and he was saying how he's trying to get Virgin on board to try and, I suppose, invest into the league. He never confirmed or denied that there was anything, but he just said the talks were
I
ongoing.
can't tell you anything about that.
No, I'm not asking you to. But I'm saying is,
Paul, I don't know it, and I'll be the last to know.
well, I don't.
It would be
Well,
great.
basically,
It would be
Niall Quinn is basically the best man that could be leading us at this point in time. I know we've had all that crap in the past with the FAI, under Delaney's reign and stuff like that. And you hear about the TV deals and stuff like that, and you look at other countries with their TV deals, and it's much, much higher. And I just look at it, just going like, we could be in such a better position. And I think when Quinn does walk away, whenever that is, I think Irish football will be in a much better situation ever when he not when he walks away, but during his course of his time, basically, is what I mean.
Yeah, I mean, Niall is so well respected in the game, and he's such a history as a player. And I mean, he did a fantastic job as well at Sunderland as chairman and everything. So yeah, he is the ideal man to be the face of the FAI, and badly needed. I mean, we need good publicity for Irish football at the moment. I mean, we look back to days like this and how fantastic they were, but we need to get them back,
Andy Townsend with the pen there.
Yeah, great penalty there from Andy Townsend.
Yeah,
we're back to 3-3 at this stage now, and I mean, it was totally nerve-wracking. I mean, just going to be one slip or one mistake, one good save, that's...
6 people watching with us. Get your comments in, guys.
Cascarino was clearly a penalty genius, distracting the opposition goalkeeper with a big divot of dirt. Was a master.
Can you see the comments, Will?
I can, yeah. Some haircuts on that Romanian team. A few mullets there.
Packy Bonner with the traditional too.
Gary, you didn't have a mullet back in those days, did you?
No, I didn't. No.
Shame.
Oh.
Again, good penalty.
That was a great penalty, yeah. He was a lovely player. That's Lupescu, I think. He was a lovely footballer as well on that side. Yeah.
Was Dan Pachescu knocking around at this time?
No, not yet.
No, it was too early for him.
He was a good player, wasn't he, Will?
Oh, fantastic right wing back.
Here's Cascarino now. I remember speaking to Sheedy about this moment. It's actually on YouTube, and he describes this moment.
Cascarino against this fella.
The suspense. Get in there.
Oh!
Yeah, just about.
Bet he needed a drink after that.
Yeah, I'd say Lung seems frustrated there. He knows he should have stopped it.
He had a proper scouse
I think
attached
he
there.
almost
The keeper.
done too well. Oh!
Oh, so close.
Was he
That was-
left-footed?
Let's be honest, lads. That's a terrible penalty.
Look
Yeah.
at Sheedy
Well,
laughing at him like.
Cass would normally have just been heading the ball. He wouldn't have been using his feet too often, you know.
He looked very clumsy taking that.
It's Daniel
It's just-
Timofte up next.
Look at him, he's just sitting down, just being like, yeah, I
Yeah.
can't believe that went in. Any other comments there? Gone down to 4 people. People must be just clicking in and out.
The old roosh.
It'll be exciting though to see what Quinn does and what he's probably allowed to do, and I think money's going to be a big factor in that. But as I say, I hope some positivity comes out of it. And when you hear someone like Jack Byrne, who pretty much is a poster boy for the league right now, it's great seeing him coming out and being vocal about stuff like that. You know what I mean? I think that'll only benefit you.
Yeah.
Well, is that your mom celebrating in the background?
Yeah.
Nice one, Packy.
She didn't celebrate on the day. She was too afraid to watch it. There's the famous shot.
Iconic, yeah, the iconic shot of Jack at the time, yeah.
Gary's in there somewhere going mad.
I'm back in this side of the cameras. I'm down the far end of the pitch, the wrong side for the penalties. But I still had a good view looking up the pitch.
Could you watch, or were you too nervous?
Oh, I watched it. Oh, yeah, I wasn't going to miss any of it.
Well, it must have just been pandemonium around you for that, was it?
Oh, I was just went bananas, yeah. And then we're thinking, who's up next? And then we see David O'Leary. Come on. He's never
what were you
taken a
thinking,
penalty.
yes or no? Were you thinking yes or no before he took it?
Oh, I was thinking no. I was sorry. I was just so. I saw with brilliant save. Why David O'Leary? I mean,
So was everybody just going O'Leary?
no.
What?
Yeah, he's placing that ball there as well.
But again, that's an O'Leary.
And
Matt,
Nathan
look,
holds
brilliant.
his breath, George
Brilliant
Hamilton.
penalty.
You
Oh.
legend.
Oh, it was a brilliant penalty. I mean, nerves of steel. Well, that's
Get in.
who would have picked him? But what nerve to take that penalty? Take
Imagine
the fifth one as well. You know.
lads.
What?
Jeez, they cut it off straight
Oh,
away.
come on, they cut it off.
It's probably getting another show on the 10.
Nah, it's ad breaks.
Oh, it's terrible. Yeah.
That was
I feel
Imagine
cheated
this-
by that.
imagine the scenes in Ireland back at that time. Obviously the scenes in the stadium, Gary, because you were there. But Jesus,
Oh.
unbelievable scenes. I'd say.
I remember actually coming out and everyone was saying, Jesus, I wish I was at home now.
Yeah.
I mean, just because there was actually an alcohol ban as well in a lot of the cities. I'm pretty sure it was in place that day as well. Now, we were staying about 30, 40 miles outside of Genoa. We ended up getting beers late enough at night by the time we got out there because we were in no rush to leave the stadium. I mean, it was fantastic to be there. And
Yeah.
So I'd imagine the fans in Genoa didn't celebrate the way you'd probably be celebrating something like that now. But no doubt a lot of them found a way to get drink.
Sure, and who blamed them?
So next up, Paul.
It's what's I have to check. The
It'll be
schedule on it,
Italy
what time
next
it's
Friday, I
at.
presume. Is it?
Italy, is it?
Yeah,
Or
it's on Friday. Yeah, Gary. It's on Friday. Can you hear me?
Yeah, I
Yeah.
can hear you. Yeah.
All
Yeah.
right, because you were looking at me. I was like, "Are you gonna answer me or what?"
Okay.
I was
Yeah, no,
saying
it's
it-
next Friday, Ireland,
Oh.
Italy. Yeah.
Okay, well we'll do another rewatch for that as well. But
Yeah.
I suppose we'll leave it there. We've been 2.5 hours on this live stream.
Right.
Probably a bit longer ourselves. Yeah, we started at 7:10. So yeah, listen. Thanks to everyone who watched, and I hope you all enjoyed the game. Huge thanks to Will Dalton and Gary Spain for coming on as well. Don't forget
Pleasure.
to follow him on social media at Will Dalton01, and Gary is on Twitter at Spain Gary. So give them a follow. Lads, cheers for coming on. I really enjoyed it. Always great to catch up. And looking forward to next week now. Stay safe throughout the week, and I'm sure I'll be speaking to you soon.
Great.
See you guys. Bye.
Thanks.